subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Synopsis. People are pirates and get cheat zodiac charms. Steal the Renren Fruit, Phantasmal Beast Species, and Nika form from Foz Fu. Step on Kaido of the Beast to become the strongest creature on land, sea, and air. Just 4 emperors. A certain year. Momonosuke, what did I do wrong? Your birth was the biggest mistake. With a flash of sword light, a bloody human head rose into the sky. Chapter 1, The Wind Rises. Rog, Sea Circle Calendar, 1498. East Blue, Lobetown. Dark clouds are coming over the city, and it's going to rain heavily. On the square, there are crowds of people all over the place, and the dense crowd whispers, as if hundreds of mosquitoes and flies are harassing your ears. Boom! Thunder and lightning exploded, and the silver flash illuminated the entire square in an instant. Hey, Pirate King, where did you hide all the treasures you found? Is it really on the Grand Line? Have you got him? That unique secret treasure. One piece at this time. A plain-looking passerby suddenly shouted. Target. Astonishingly, it was the Pirate King who was being held up and kneeling on the high platform. Gold Roger. As for this passerby, he is jokingly called the person who truly started the age of discovery in major forms. It is unknown whether Roger was looking for someone to help him. As soon as he finished speaking, the dark crowd in front of the execution platform seemed to have been pressed on the shizen button. Even their breathing slowed down subconsciously, and their eyes were fixed on Roger. I'm afraid I'll miss something big. The executioner's mind on the execution platform went blank for a moment, and he was a little overwhelmed by the changes in front of him. Ha 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 ha! Do you want my treasure? If you want it, just go and get it. Hey, go find it. I put everything in the world there. Grand Line. One Piece. Roger, who was sitting cross-legged on the execution platform, suddenly let out a huge roar. Hey, you got it. The executioner's expression changed drastically, and he finally came to his senses. He stabbed the spear in his hand without hesitation, and it penetrated Roger's chest in an instant. One Piece Roger death. Oh, as soon as these words came out, both the crowd under the execution platform and the people around the world who were watching the live broadcast of this grand event were instantly excited. There are adventurers who cheer loudly to find the great secret treasure, careerists who watch everything calmly, and revolutionaries who watch with cold eyes. Anyone knows, the tide of the times is about to rise, and the so-called Great Pirate Era has begun. Damn it. In an attic not far from the execution platform, a middle-aged man wearing frog glasses and a braided beard looked at this extremely chaotic scene and couldn't help shouting angrily. The windowsill that I was holding on to was even shattered to pieces because of my excessive force. Because he knew that the world was about to be turned upside down. Admiral of Headquarters Sengoku. Well, in a small alley not far from the noisy crowd, a figure lying on the ground like a dead dog seemed to be awakened by the roar of people. Slowly he raised his seemingly stiff neck, revealing a handsome face of a young man who looked to be about 11 or 12 years old. His slightly confused eyes looked around subconsciously, and when he saw the face that was calmly going to die, his pupils suddenly contracted violently in shock. One Piece Roger. As a pirate fan, of course he was extremely familiar with Roger's crazy face, especially the 2 things that he didn't know were beards or nose hairs, which could be easily recognized even after crossing the barrier of the 2nd and 3rd dimensions. Extremely high. Yes, the boy is one of the many time travelers, and luckily he managed to travel to the world of One Piece without dying. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary orphan. With the support of the state, he finally graduated from college and found a stable job. Who knew that he would come to this F-ed-up world after sleeping? In his mind, One Piece is just an anime to watch for fun. If you really come to this world, your life will probably be a history of struggle, blood, and tears. You must know that in this world, there are not only mentally retarded celestial dragons sitting on top and dominating, but also pirates who burn, kill, and loot everywhere, constantly threatening the lives of the people at the bottom. As for Luffy's group, they are an extremely rare group, even among pirates. A group of people shout adventure slogans and call themselves pirates, but they are also destroyers of order. There is no so-called order in their eyes. Everything is done based on preference, and their thoughts cannot be measured by ordinary people's moral standards. If he happened to appear on their battlefield, as an ordinary person, he would not be able to escape the fate of reincarnation again. As a modern person living in an orderly world, I feel absolutely insecure about life here. Kanos Atlas? I have no choice but to live in this world with your name on my back. The young man, Atlas, murmured to himself. As he spoke, he used his remaining strength to struggle up and try to stay away from this place of right and wrong. There is no way. It will be quite dangerous here in a while. Heroes from all walks of life are gathering here now, such as the red-haired four emperors, Mihawk, Doflamingo, Gecko Moria, and so on. Even though some of them are not as famous as later generations, they already have a bit of the style of the great pirates in the future. Marine could not miss this great opportunity to nip the danger in the bud. He believed that Sengoku, as the resourceful general, would not miss this. But the pirates and careerists who yearn for so-called freedom will not be caught without mercy. By that time, this place will turn into a battlefield of blood and fire. If a novice like Atlas was killed by the aftermath of the battle, he would probably become the worst time traveler in history. The staggering figure kept moving towards the Logtown Marine base in the memory of his predecessor. His inner desire for life kept urging him to unleash the potential in his body. His legs, which were filled with lead, and his stomach, which was as if it were being burned by fire, were a constant reminder of the frailty of his body. But as an orphan, Atlas has long understood a truth from his hard life in his early years. Survival or destruction always depends on himself. Respecting his own life and longing for life have been imprinted in his bones. Whether you grab fate by the throat or let fate grab you by the scruff of the neck, it all depends on a single thought. Time passed little by little, but the journey of just 10 minutes seemed like a century to Atlas. But the faintly visible marine sign in front of him and the marine not far away reminded him of his survival. The opportunity is right in front of you. Finally, Atlas, who seemed to have gone through 81 hardships, arrived at the marine base in Logtown and looked at the image of a seagull holding a scale in its mouth. I didn't know why I relaxed for a while, but my body, which had lost the support of adrenaline, couldn't hold it anymore. My vision gradually became blurred, and I could only vaguely hear the sound of artillery fire mixed with exclamations. Before he could say anything, his vision suddenly went dark. The body that was already riddled with holes was like a string that was about to break. It could no longer support it and quickly fell towards the ground in front of it. "Quick, there's a young man fainting over there." Immediately afterwards, a burst of hurried footsteps echoed in my mind, leaving only the sound. Chapter 2, Atlas. A beam of sunlight broke through the thick clouds and shone on Logtown, where traces of the battle still remained, as if foreshadowing the new life blooming in the midst of destruction. Marine Base. A handsome-looking young man was lying on the bed, his eyes closed, a slight sweat on his forehead, and an occasional look of struggle on his face. Suddenly, the boy opened his closed eyes. His bloodshot eyes subconsciously looked at the things around him, and his weak fists clenched reflexively. His pupils shrank violently, showing his restless heart. It seems that I am not dreaming. I really came to the world of One Piece. Atlas now only hopes that everything he encounters so far is just a dream. However, reality slapped him hard. Judging from the current situation, he can't go back. Let's make peace with what we have come. Atlas sighed resignedly. I started thinking about the next way out: strength. If you want to live freely in the world of pirates, you can only have power that is above all else. Because he clearly understands that in this world where the jungle law of the weak and the strong is interpreted to the ultimate level, the only way to gain a foothold is to attribute great power to one's own. So, he plans to join Marine. It is true that the role played by Marine in the One Piece anime is just a lackey of the Celestial Dragons. Moreover, There's a guy like Colonel Mouse who not only fails to protect the country and the people, but also cooperates with the pirates to oppress the civilians. But it is undeniable that Marine is the real righteous man who maintains order in the sea. In this chaotic world, there is nothing more than comparing yourself to the worst, but Marine on the whole still has a camp that believes in justice. As for the Revolutionary Army, let alone whether it is established or not, we can get a glimpse of it just from their organization and program. This is still an immature, revolutionary organization. As for the other pirate camp, Atlas has never thought about it. As a well-off young man who grew up under the red flag and received 9 years of compulsory education, Atlas really couldn't do what he did as a pirate. Even if he didn't burn, kill, and loot, he couldn't accept it psychologically. A thief is a thief, and Atlas is used to the modern life that is relatively more generous than the pirate world. He really couldn't accept it if he was asked to live a homeless and precarious life at sea. As for the disgusting bubble bobbles, they are indeed a bit of a headache. Based on the principle of out of sight, out of mind, just try to avoid encountering these maggots. Let's just call it cover-up. After all, he is just an ordinary person struggling to survive, so he doesn't need to consider this kind of behavior to save the world. To say the least, with his current status, he probably wouldn't be qualified to meet the so-called world nobles. Atlas thought with some self-deprecation. Another thing is that Marine has a complete inheritance method, which can also give him appropriate protection when he is weak, allowing him enough time to grow up. And seeking Marine's asylum in such a chaotic time was his only choice at the time. Otherwise, he would have to withdraw from this world early. Dong, 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 dong. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupted Atlas's thoughts. Please come in. Atlas was shocked. He didn't know if it was because he didn't take in enough water for a long time. His voice was a little dry and hoarse, which made him a little uncomfortable. With a click, a beam of light squeezed in from outside the door, and a burly figure wearing a cloak of justice and a resolute face appeared in front of Atlas. Atlas was shocked, although he could not currently understand the military rank represented by the epaulets. However, he knew that only officers of the rank of lieutenant and above were qualified to wear the cloak of justice. So, this man is at least an ensign. Atlas thought about struggling to get up to show respect. Kid, no need. After all, you are still a wounded person. The man waved his hand, a hint of appreciation flashing in his eyes. Let me introduce myself. My name is Marcus Wright. I'm a captain at Logtown Marine Base. You can call me Captain Wright. Marcus Wright said with a smile. Yes, Captain Wright. My name is Atlas. I am an orphan, and I am determined to be a righteous Marine. Atlas still tried his best to stand on the edge of the bed and answered Wright with his loudest voice at this stage. Oh, the righteous Marine. Marcus Wright had a look of satisfaction on his face. That damn Roger started the era of great pirates with his life, and now there are signs of chaos. Marine needs more righteous people to maintain order on this sea. If only all teenagers were like Atlas. Thinking of this, Marcus Wright couldn't help but feel a little gloomy. But he immediately cheered up. It was precisely because of this that he needed to have high morale to uphold justice. So, boy, what do you think justice is? Captain Marcus Wright's face gradually became serious, and his eyes stared directly into Atlas's eyes. Justice, of course, means fighting crime and protecting civilians. A flush of excitement flashed across Atlas' pale face, and he said loudly. Of course, he was pretending. This is in line with the passion and vitality that a passionate young man should have. If someone pops up and says, I believe in absolute justice, then you think you are a Kainu. Therefore, his answer must be consistent with the limitations brought about by his age and experience, so that Marine can better shape him justice that is in line with Marine's justice. Really, that's really good justice. Captain Wright did not object or anything, but gave a meaningful smile. There are not a few Marines who uphold this kind of justice. Many young Marines think this way. Why didn't I feel the same way back then? The thought flashed past, and Wright continued. Atlas, I already understand your justice, but Marine will not accept a 12-year-old brat. But I can make the decision to accept you as a miscellaneous soldier in our base, and Marine doesn't accept trash. If you don't do a good job, I will fire you. Do you understand? Atlas. Commander Atlas obeys your orders, Captain. Atlas gave an excited military salute. Of course, he was really excited, because this marked his formal integration into the world and found a way to continue to become stronger. Gulil. Suddenly, a stomach growl broke the passionate atmosphere, and Atlas scratched his head in embarrassment. He had not eaten for several days, and his ability to hold on until now was attributed to the pervert per capita physique of the pirate world. Okay, let's go to the base canteen for a good meal later. After all, maintaining justice also requires filling your stomach. Wright couldn't help but laugh. He was just a child after all. Yes, Atlas shouted Marine base. Colonel's office, Wright stood in front of his desk and reported on the situation he had just met with Atlas. Sitting behind the desk was a middle-aged man who was chewing a cigar and puffing away smoke. The swirling smoke made it impossible to see his face clearly, and one could only vaguely see a pair of sharp eyes, a pair of persevering eyes that had experienced blood and fire. Kanos Atlas was born in Shieldstown, under the jurisdiction of the Marine 153 branch. He was attacked by pirates while traveling with his parents a year ago and wandered to Logtown. He lived in Logtown for half a year. His parents' whereabouts are unknown. Were you attacked by pirates? What a chaotic world. Chapter 3 Plug-in. Zodiac Charm East Blue. Logtown Marine Base Cafeteria. The cafeteria that was supposed to be noisy was quiet for some reason. Looking along the surprised gazes of everyone, a slightly thin young man buried his head among the piles of food, concentrating on destroying the food in front of him. Yes, the boy is Atlas, who was ordered to fill his stomach. It's already the third person's share. Everyone around looked at Atlas fighting with food with great interest. What's more, the good guy made a bet with the comrades next to him. See how many people this kid can eat. Atlas didn't care what the people around him thought. The hunger in his belly no longer allowed him to think about anything else. He didn't know how his thin body could hold so much food. There was only the sound of crazy chewing in his mind. But this also gave Atlas a little confidence. The confidence to become a strong man. That's right, at least in his opinion. Being able to eat more than ordinary people shows that this body has good talents, which means that the more energy it can store, this is in line with the law of energy conservation. In a world of pirates, being able to eat does not necessarily mean you're strong. However, the strong will definitely be able to eat it, although it was not as good as the terrifying appetite of Garp, Luffy, and others. Atlas ended the battle by eating food for 5 people. Belch. Atlas patted his slightly protruding belly, burped with satisfaction, and then walked towards the dormitory with steps that he didn't recognize. After returning to the dormitory, Atlas slowly performed a few movements as a post-meal digestion exercise. There was no way, after all, he wouldn't be able to return his life the ability to digest food so powerfully and quickly. It's not like Luffy or the others who quickly turn their life back into a passive skill. We can only rely on physical external forces to promote absorption and digestion. For a long time, my forehead became slightly sweaty, and my face became visibly rosier. Atlas just stopped his post-meal exercise, and at this time he also calmed down to check his situation. Slowly sink your consciousness into your mind. 12 octagons with different patterns float in the endless darkness. Yes, this is Atlas cheat, without any system. There is no inheritance, just these 12 spells. If Atlas is not mistaken, this is the zodiac charm from The Adventures of Jackie Chan that he watched as a child. In his memory, the abilities represented by each of these 12 spells are no less than devil fruit. It's even better in terms of settings. The 12 zodiac signs come from the demon lord of fire and can be said to have magical abilities. And it can be used directly as soon as you get it. No development is required, but whether it is powerful or not depends on the user. And they also have a characteristic that devil fruit can't match. They won't be rejected by the sea. I just don't know if the performance of this thing in the pirate world will change. Atlas muttered. Thinking of this, Atlas projected his consciousness onto the spell. Suddenly, Atlas' originally excited expression slowly darkened. In the original world, activating the spell required energy. In the world of the Holy Lord, Ki exists in everyone. Therefore, the power of a spell can be used by an individual, and it is nothing more than a matter of expression. But in the world of pirates, ki does not exist, and the use of spells requires physical support. And whether the spell can be used requires a strong body to carry it. It feels like the body is being transformed step by step to adapt to the soul. Atlas's face turned a little dark. According to some information he has obtained so far, with his current physical condition, he can only light up one spell. Wanting to carry 2 or more talismans at the same time is tantamount to wishful thinking for Atlas at this time. So, now which spell should I choose? At this time, Atlas was in some trouble. According to his childhood memories, the rat talisman can give still objects the ability to move, which is a bit similar to the homets created by Big Mom's soul fruit. Just hearing it sounds very powerful. After all, this is the ability of the 4 emperors. The ox talisman can give Atlas immense power. Whether this divine blessing increases basic strength or additional strength remains to be determined, but it is still a combat weapon, which makes Atlas very coveted. The tiger talisman can prevent the various powers in the holder from conflicting with each other. That is, it can integrate the power of all the talismans. When it is divided into 2 halves, the holder will become both good and evil. This ability made Atlas's eyes light up. On the surface, this ability seems useless, but if you can use the power of multiple spells at the same time, it is not as simple as 1 + 1 2. For example, when using divine speed and divine power at the same time, the power will be superimposed to a very terrifying situation. After all, as Kizaru said, speed is power. The rabbit talisman can give the holder divine speed. It can also enhance the user's neural reaction speed. As for traveling through time and space, I don't know if it will work. The dragon talisman can give the holder powerful explosive power, which is more destructive and is a very strong attack method. The snake charm can give the holder the ability to become invisible. Isn't this a replica of the transparent fruit? I don't know if it can avoid seeing and hearing. The horse talisman can give the holder the ability to cure all diseases, and it can also be said to remove the negative effects of the human body. Injuries and other injuries should also be included in the category of diseases. In this case, this ability is simply the best choice to assist in training. In this way, you only need to exercise hard, and you don't have to worry about injuring yourself. As long as you have enough physical strength and energy, you can repair yourself. The sheep talisman can make the holder's soul leave the body and give people dreams. It seems to be the ability to strengthen the soul, but I don't know if it will be helpful in practicing hockey. After all, the so-called hockey is an extension of one's own will, and the will is almost the same as the soul. The monkey charm can give the holder the ability to transform anyone into an animal form, which is an interesting ability. This is probably the only ability that can affect people, but if it only changes into an animal shape, its value will be somewhat reduced. If things like strength and speed remain unchanged, it will be of little use to the strong. The chicken charm can give the holder the ability to control floating, but I heard that it seems to use telekinesis. Alice doesn't know what the conditions are for it to be activated in the pirate world. It's a bit like Lion Fruit's ability. It's very good at saving lives. After all, the ability to fly is a very rare ability in the world of pirates, and it can give the user strong mobility. The dog charm can give the holder the ability to live forever, which means that when Atlas lights up, he will basically never grow old. It's like using op fruit to perform an ageless surgery. It's simply a bug. Immortality has always been the eternal pursuit of human society, and now it is right in front of Atlas. He could obtain it with just a thought, which made him breath a little short. The pig talisman can give the holder the ability to emit lasers from both eyes, which can also be said to be laser eyes. Compared to the destruction of the dragon talisman, the pig talisman is more inclined to cut. Atlas doesn't know much about how these charms perform in the pirate world. He can only make choices based on the information he knows. As for the subsequent abilities, he will probably have to slowly explore them. After understanding the abilities of each talisman, Atlas couldn't help but feel a little confused about which talisman to choose. Should you choose a spell that can form a powerful combat power in a short period of time, or an auxiliary spell? For a long time, he finally made a choice. Focusing his consciousness on the desired talisman, Atlas couldn't help but feel his heart tremble. That's it. Chapter 4: The Horse. In the year C Circle Calendar 1499, June. East Blue Log Town Marine Base. The morning light was slightly drunk, and sparse starlight spread over the base campus. A strong figure kept running around the school grounds against the slightly cool breeze, with heavy weights tied to his hands and feet. Ooh. Atlas ran wildly while breathing heavily, like a bellows twitching. That's 4 hours of physical training he does every day. In this world, all abilities must be supported by a strong body. A fight like that with the Admiral Four Emperors would last for days and nights. If you don't have any physical strength, you have to take a break halfway through. He doesn't want to be a real man for 5 seconds. The sun gradually rose, and Atlas's physical training gradually came to an end. Atlas picked up a bamboo knife in the corner of the school ground and started to swing it. Brush, brush, brush. An unedged bamboo knife was danced with great force by him. Hack, cut, cut, PK, tease, sweep. Atlas has practiced the basic movements in a decent manner, and of course he knows these basic movements as well. He doesn't know any moves. After all, tall buildings rise from the ground. Didn't Zoro practice the same basic moves when he was little? Therefore, if you lay a very solid foundation, you can quickly become stronger in a short period of time. 9992, 9993, 9994. Atlas completed this morning's training tasks meticulously, and the ground around him had already been soaked with sweat. He is now in the world of pirates. Even if this place is the East Blue, which is known as the weakest sea, there's still many big pirates that can threaten his life. After all, his current body is only 13 years old. Training is really tiring. Fortunately, I have the horse talisman to help me repair all kinds of hidden injuries in my body. Otherwise, if I practice like this, I will still suffer from hidden injuries even if I don't die. Let alone becoming stronger, it will be difficult for me to live to the age of 30. After all the training was completed, Atlas lay in the middle of the school field with a big character. The sun that had just risen shone on his body, and the angular muscles exuded a strong smell of male hormones under the baptism of sweat. Compared to a year ago, Atlas has changed a lot. Not only his rapid height, but also his earth-shaking strength. This year, Atlas has done nothing but daily chores, laundry, mopping, etc. The rest of his time was basically spent on exercising himself, and even his sleeping time was forcibly reduced to 5 hours. The intensity of this training has gone from being difficult at the beginning to being easy now, mostly thanks to the help of the horse talisman. Atlas is now somewhat grateful that he was not dazzled by the abilities of other spells at that time, but decisively chose the horse talisman, which is currently an excellent auxiliary ability for him. In the world of pirates, physique is the basis of all abilities. Whether you're a demon fruit power or a strong taijutsu master, if you want to become stronger, you cannot avoid a strong physique. What surprised him even more was that the effect brought by the horse talisman was definitely not just what the words "cure all diseases" could express. It can not only treat various injuries during exercise, but also speed up the body's self-healing through continuous eating. It's a bit similar to the return of life. During the battle, you can also use your physical strength to restore your wounds, achieving the effect of Zoan Devil Fruit. After experiments, Atlas discovered that using the horse talisman consumes more than just physical strength, and the energy stored in the body can also power the horse talisman. Moreover, with the frequent use, the mark of the spell in his mind gradually faded, which was definitely not the disappearance of his ability. If he guessed correctly, when the mark disappears completely, the horse talisman will turn into Atlas's physical talent, completely becoming an instinct-like existence, thus reaching a state similar to awakening. Of course, it is not as pervert as Fruit Awakening, but at least it will consume less physical strength or energy. Over the past year, his height has reached an astonishing 1.9 meters. You must know that before, he was just a little kid over 1.6 meters tall. Not only that, the rapid intake of nutrients and sweating abruptly transformed him from a man with ribs to a macho man with broad shoulders and a thin waist, and his arms were about to burst through his cuffs. His limbs and torso each carry 60 kilograms of weight every day. He never takes them off except for bathing, and he still wears them even when he is doing physical training. Over the past year, everyone in the entire base has basically been challenged by him. From being unable to defeat anyone at the beginning to now being invincible below the school level. He had no idea how many beatings he received. Of course, Captain Wright, who had brought him into Marine Base in the first place, was no longer his match, which made Wright depressed for a long time before he recovered. After lying down for a moment, Atlas patted the non-existent dust on his butt and strode towards the canteen. Nowadays, he has to eat a meal for 10 people to reach 80% of fullness. Compared to him a year ago, he is completely different. Hey, Uncle Carl, prepare a meal for 10 people. As soon as Atlas entered the cafeteria, he waved his hand to a bearded man, his excitement palpable. Huh, why is it you little brat again? The big man with long cheeks, that is Uncle Carl, suddenly looked downcast. Although he spoke unforgivingly, there was no hint of impatience in his eyes. Carl Mai, head chef of the base canteen. We got to know Atlas because of his terrifying appetite, and we admire the young and energetic Atlas very much. After all, he is now a role model for the younger generation in the base. Don't be so stingy, Uncle Carl. Atlas didn't care and said with a smile. While he was talking, Atlas's meal was ready. He was not polite, picked up a piece of meat, and stuffed it into his mouth. Base Colonel's office. Okay, I'll get support as soon as possible. Colonel Arthur Randall said seriously. Arthur Randall, the top commander of the East Blue Lowtown Marine Base, was also the one who approved Atlas's enlistment a year ago. With a snap, Colonel Randall hung up the phone and shouted out the door, "Harold, sound the alarm immediately and gather the entire school." Yes. As he spoke, footsteps sounded farther and farther outside the door. Woo, woo. The emergency siren rang throughout the Marine base, and all off-duty personnel took quick action, including Atlas, who had just come out of the cafeteria after eating and drinking. Hey, now is the time to verify the results of my practice. Atlas was inexplicably excited, with a stern look on his face, and walked quickly towards the school field. 5 minutes later, everyone was basically assembled. His Excellency Colonel Arthur Randall, wearing the great cloak of justice, stood at the front of the team, looked at the neat queue with satisfaction, and shouted loudly. All of them. A small town in our jurisdiction is being invaded by pirates. Now, all combatants will follow me to uphold justice. Justice must not be blasphemed. Justice, justice, justice. All the Marines in the school shouted angrily, and Atlas, who was standing in the crowd, was no exception. With blood rushing to his head, he now felt full of power. Chapter 5, The Sword Pirates, East Blue. An unknown town. Guys, give it a lousy. Take away the food and beauties. A 2-meter-tall man with a ferocious appearance, wearing a captain's hat crookedly on his head, stood at the bow of the ship holding a western sword, grinning his yellow teeth and roaring forward. Captain of the Sword Pirates. Ottoman. Bounty of 8 million Baileys. Oh, the pirates could no longer restrain their desire to rob, and rushed off the ship to plunder everywhere. Suddenly, the originally peaceful town seemed like a hell on earth, with cries and pleas for mercy everywhere. Hey, Captain, won't our huge momentum attract Marine? At this time, a man with a cigarette in his mouth slowly walked up to Ottoman and said, looking a little ugly, "Hey, Frank, who do you think I am? Laozi is Ottoman. I have inquired. This is the edge of the jurisdiction of Lowtown Marine Base. It will take a while for Marine to get here, and it is impossible for the top officer of their base to come. I am a big pirate with a bounty of 8 million belly." Ho ha 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 ha. There was a hint of cunning in Ottoman's wild laughter. In the East Blue, known as the weakest sea, the bounty of 8 million Baileys can already be called a big pirate. No wonder he is so confident. Frank heard the words and stopped talking. After all, he was just a deputy, and the bounty was only 5 million Baileys. His strength was far inferior to that of the Captain Otamon. Lobetown Wharf Colonel Randall's eyes were solemn as he stared at the Marine warship slowly leaving. The figure who just sneaked into the warship flashed in his mind, and a smile couldn't help but appear on the corner of his mouth, and his tough face gradually softened. "Ow. Art Brat, why are you here?" When Captain Wright saw Atlas sneaking around, he immediately showed an expression as if he had seen a ghost, and his jaw almost dropped. This, report to Captain Wright, the orderly Atlas requested to join the battle. When Atlas saw that he was discovered, he simply broke the jar and threw it away. "If you state your request directly, I've already gotten involved anyway. Is it possible that you can still drive me away?" Atlas thought indifferently. "Okay, then you can be classified as a ship's chore boy for the time being, you brat." Wright was helpless when he saw this. He also knew that this was the only way to do it in this situation. However, stay back later and don't wander around. The enemy is a large pirate group with a bounty of more than 10 million belly. Wright then said seriously, his brown eyes fixed on Atlas. Whenever Atlas dared to say no, he would throw the brat into a solitary confinement room without saying a word. It would be better to let old guys like them do it if they fight hard. "Well, don't worry, right? I will pay attention to your own safety." Atlas was silent for a while, and then he assured himself heartlessly, his words full of confidence in his own strength. After all, the captain only plays a small role in 8 million Baileys. Who knows how much his 8 million bounty is worth? Although the bounty can reflect strength to a certain extent, some pirates continue to burn, kill, and loot to increase their reputation in order to increase their bounty. So guys who don't live up to their name appear in endlessly on this sea. Yeah. As soon as Wright saw Atlas' indifferent expression, he knew that this kid didn't take his words to heart, so he could only secretly decide to pay more attention to him when the war started. After saying goodbye to Wright, Atlas slowly walked to the storage warehouse and chose a Marine standard knife. It was not as good as a good knife, let alone a big knife, or even a supreme knife, but it is still easier to use than fists. For the current Atlas, his current body has not reached the point where he can practice arm color. Even the standard of Marine 6 styles is not enough, which means that his body is still in the category of a normal human being, not superhuman, so sharp weapons are naturally his best choice at the moment. On the other hand, Wright ran to the command room and reported to his superior about Atlas. Finally, amidst bursts of serious atmosphere, the warship finally arrived at its destination. The pirate flag with a western sword interspersed among the skulls in the distance gradually became clearer. Marine on the warship immediately clenched the weapon in his hand, and the constant swallowing of saliva revealed his inner nervousness. After all, this is war, and war can kill people. Atlas on the deck also gradually regained his laziness. There was no fear in his eyes, but he was extremely excited about the coming battle. All the cells in the body are eager to try. "Boss, Marine is here. Should we retreat?" The watchman of the sword pirates in the distance had noticed Marine's arrival and immediately issued an early warning. After receiving the early warning, the sword pirates immediately withdrew from all parts of the town in a panic, and they collided with Marine who had just assembled to land. Thus, Atlas's first battle in his life began. Atlas drew out the long knife in his hand, leaned forward and accelerated, passing through the crowd and heading straight for Ottoman. When he caught a glimpse of that familiar figure, Wright's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Ottoman also looked surprised, but after seeing that he was just a handyman, he couldn't help but show contempt on his face. Those who strike first will gain the upper hand, but those who strike later will suffer disaster. Atlas didn't care when he saw that Ottoman underestimated his opponent. The coldness in his eyes became even more cold, and the strength in his hands suddenly increased a bit. Itaryu Lion's Elegy, a high-level move name, came out of his mouth, and Ottoman was shocked with his determination. Of course, this is just to borrow the name of Zoro's move. In fact, he just slashes with a knife and has no moves at all. He just calls out his name to show off. When Ottoman saw this, he just held his western sword horizontally in front of him. However, he regretted it the next second because this knife directly knocked him out. He rolled on the ground several times before barely stopping. When Atlas saw that the sword had accomplished a remarkable feat, he took a long stride and slashed at Otto Man again with the sword. Otto Man is not a fool either. He has appropriately demonstrated the qualities that a big pirate should have. Immediately, a lazy donkey rolled around and narrowly avoided the critical point. But after all, the opportunity was lost and one arm was left behind forever. "You little devil." Otto Man's expression was a little gloomy, and one of his arms was actually crippled by a kid. Not everyone is a red-haired Shanks. Even with a broken arm, he can become four emperors. It can be foreseen that Otto Man will basically be useless in the future. Of course, he must first be able to have a future. Without giving Otto Man a chance to recover, Atlas held the knife in one hand and lunged forward to strike straight. Damn it! Otto Man did not hesitate. He directly exchanged injuries for injuries, and the Western sword went straight to Atlas's heart. Unexpectedly, Atlas lowered himself, made a feint, and attacked him 3 ways down. But Otto Man's old strength was gone. But his new strength was not yet regenerated. He staggered and received a solid stab at his thigh. Scarlet splattered on the knife-like face. Otto Man immediately fell to the ground, his flesh and blood thighs bleeding continuously, and his face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. This battle only lasted a few dozen seconds from start to finish. Seeing that their captain was dealt with so lightly by a marine handyman, the rest of the sword pirates looked in disbelief. But the facts are in front of them, and no matter how hard they struggle, they can only accept it. All of them lost their fighting spirit, and within a short time, they were all disarmed and tied to the ground. The battle is over. The Marines clean up the mess in an orderly manner. Captain Wright walked up to Atlas, patted his shoulder happily, pursed his lips, and smiled without saying a word. Atlas turned back and grinned at Wright. The blood-stained face burst into a smile, revealing snow-white teeth. No more, no less, 8 neatly arranged up and down. Sunny and eerie. Chapter 6, The Second Child, Sea Circle Calendar, 1499. Kano's Atlas is 13. Promoted to East Blue Log Town, Base Warrant Officer. 1 year later, Marine Campus. Hoochie, 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 hoochie. Atlas still carried out today's training meticulously. Even though he's already the leader of the younger generation of Logtown Marine Base. Even though he killed the big pirate with a bounty of 8 million belly a year ago and was promoted to the base warrant officer. He still feels weak. Very weak. After the battle that day, as a miscellaneous soldier, he was sent to manage casualty statistics and material repatriation in the post-war town. What he saw was not the joy of the rest of his life after the war, but faces that were either sad or numb. And these are the treatments for the weak. Only then did he truly feel the cruelty of this world. This is a world where the weak eat the strong. So, he must become strong enough. Thinking of this, Atlas swung his knife a little faster. Click! The bamboo knife is broken. Art kid, don't even think about taking another bamboo knife from me. The old man from the logistics department, who was taking a leisurely walk not far away, happened to see this scene. His nose was almost crooked with anger, and he shouted loudly. This is already the 5th bamboo knife that Atlas has broken this month. Hey. Atlas also smiled awkwardly after hearing this. He had no choice but to do so. His body was now in the development stage, his strength was growing rapidly, and the density of his skeletal muscles was also constantly increasing. The most intuitive thing is that at the age of 14 this year, he is already 2 meters tall and is expected to grow to an admiral height of 3 meters by the time he reaches adulthood. Brother Atlas. Suddenly, a white-haired boy appeared outside the school grounds. He looked about the same age as Atlas. He was panting and holding his knees with a little admiration in his eyes. Jill, Smoker. Atlas heard the sound and looked at the white-haired boy. That's right, Smoker, the famous white hunter in the future. In the early stages of the anime, he was almost invincible, forcing the protagonist Luffy into desperate situations many times. Logie is smoke fruit ability user. Of course, he has not eaten devil fruit yet. He is just a little kid and a follower of Atlas. Smoker also joined Marine during the period after Pirate King Roger was executed. Like Atlas, he started as a handyman and is now a base seaman first class. It can be said that he is the first person under Atlas. Of course, Smoker still has a good idea of how much he weighs, and he probably won't be able to make a single move against Atlas. You know, Atlas didn't just sit in the base and train hard this year. Marine's presence is indispensable in any outing. He knew that the flowers grown in the greenhouse could not withstand the test of the scorching sun. If you want to become a true strong man, you must have experience in blood and fire. Combat skills and combat experience cannot be obtained through hard training. Atlas returned from being injured at the beginning to basically completing the mission without any injuries, and his combat effectiveness has been greatly improved. He estimated that now the entire base, except for Mr. Colonel, was basically no match for him. "What do you want from me?" Smoker kid. After withdrawing his thoughts, Atlas remembered that Smoker seemed to have something to do with him just now. "Don't call me a brat. Aren't you the same age as me?" Smoker was a little angry when he heard this. Everyone is obviously the same age, so what's the point of always calling me a kid? "Colonel Randall has something to do with you." Still angry, Smoker conveyed Mr. Colonel's order to Atlas. "What do you want from me, Colonel Randall?" Atlas was a little confused, but he still followed the instructions and walked to the Colonel's office at the base. "Old man Randall, what do you want from me?" Atlas opened the office door and walked straight in without knocking. Anyway, he has not dealt with Randall once or twice. Basically, he has to report to Randall every time he goes on a mission, so the two of them are so familiar that they are almost brothers. "Hello, Art Kid. Please respect me as a colonel and don't knock on the door every time you come in." Colonel Randall was also unequivocal, and he opened his mouth to teach Atlas a lesson. Randall has always had a very high tolerance for future stars in this base. He could almost conclude that this brat's future potential would never stop at a small log town. This vice admiral may be his future, because Atlas basically has all the potential to become a strong player. Pervert's physical talent and perseverance. Okay, let's not talk too much. I came to you this time mainly for two things. Atlas also looked solemn when he heard this, and immediately became serious. Randall nodded with satisfaction when he saw this, and continued, "Are you interested in going to our recruiting training camp for a period of time?" Atlas was also stunned. The headquarters recruit training camp can be said to be the Marine General Training Base. Those who come out from there will basically have school-level military ranks, a proper gilded place. Moreover, the chief instructor of the training camp is former Marine Admiral Blackarm Zephyr, and the three current monster vice admirals, porosely know, Akane Sakazuki and Akiji Kazan, came out from under Zephyr. So of course Atlas wants to go there, because there he can get the most complete 6 styles and Haki's inheritance, which will be a very important cornerstone on Atlas' road to becoming a strong man. There are a few places at the base, so I wanted to ask about your intention. Seeing that Atlas didn't speak, Randall continued. "Mr. Colonel, I want to go, but not now. I have not reached my limit yet, and it is not suitable to go to the headquarters yet." Atlas thought carefully and then said firmly to Randall, "He is too young now, and his growth and strength is far from reaching his prime. Going to the headquarters now will only waste this opportunity. What he has to do now is to polish his foundation." "Well, that's okay. I'll leave this spot to you first. Then you and Smoker will go to the headquarters together." Randall praised. Being able to clearly understand one's own condition is very rare at this age, which is really a good sign. "Smoker, that's right. I originally wanted you to go first, and Smoker will go after a few years. After all, he is still too weak now. I will ask you to take more care of him then." Randall explained. "No problem, Colonel. I will take care of this kid, Smoker." Atlas replied. Randall, the kid, didn't react at all when Atlas called Smoker. Firstly, he has adapted to Atlas's inconspicuousness, and secondly, Atlas is indeed so mature that people will ignore his age. Next, let me talk about the second thing. Chapter 7, Phylock Pirates, East Blue, in front of the Colonel's office at Logtown Marine Base. Atlas stood there with a complicated look on his face, holding a reward order tightly in his hand. "Strange gentleman, Phylock. Bounty of 15 million Baileys. Kid, what I'm going to say next is related to you. Oh no, to be precise, it's related to your parents." Colonel Randall pushed a wanted poster in front of Atlas with a solemn expression. Atlas was stunned when he heard this, and then looked at the familiar face on the wanted poster. I don't know why, but there was a surge of anger in my heart, and blood red and screams appeared in my mind unconsciously. No, this is not the mood of Atlas. This is what happened to the predecessor. Memories of the real dead suddenly attack me. Hey, Atlas, calm down. Randall saw some ferocious signs on Atlas's face and quickly spoke to stop him. You. Atlas took a long breath and forcibly suppressed the grief and anger in his heart that did not belong to him. He took a closer look at the somewhat yellowed reward notice. Phylock, captain of the Phylock pirates, has a bounty of 15 million Baileys. A merchant ship was robbed 3 years ago. The Kano's couple and Atlas were on the ship at the time. Unfortunately, they died. Atlas is the only known survivor. According to Atlas' memory, the reason why his predecessor was able to escape was because his parents hid him in a wine barrel. Later, he drifted with the sea currents in a wine barrel to Logue Town, and finally survived for a few months before reuniting with the Kano's couple. I received information that Phylock and his gang have appeared within our jurisdiction. Originally, I wanted to deal with him personally, but I think it's better for you to deal with him yourself. Atlas slowly left the base office building, and at the same time decided in his heart to fulfill his predecessor's last wish so that he could repay the kindness of occupying this body. Thinking of this, Atlas took all the information about the Phylock pirates from the staff and immediately set off to capture them. At the pier, "Brother Atlas, can you take me with you? I want to kill pirates too." Smoker heard about Atlas from somewhere and waited at the dock early. "Kid, you're too weak." Atlas waved his hand and walked towards his boat without looking back. Finally, I added, "This is my own business." Smoker was still thinking about what to say, but he had to swallow it when he heard Atlas's words. He could only watch Atlas's retreating figure silently. "Hey, Mitchell, sailing on the sea is too boring. How long does it take to get to the next island?" Jim asked impatiently. Skull Splitter, Jim, the vice captain of the Phylock pirates. With a bounty of 12 million Baileys, he is powerful and cruel. I like to blow the enemy's head off and then enjoy the mind-blowing scene. It can be said to be the ultimate pervert. "Jim, sir, it will take several days to reach the next island." Navigator Mitchell was a little nervous, after all, as someone who had witnessed Jim's cruel methods many times. It was impossible not to be nervous. He didn't want to die with his brains bleeding all over the floor. "Okay, Jim, if you're really bored, just find something to do, but don't scare our navigator." Seeing what Jim wanted to say, Phylock immediately blocked his words and smiled gently at Mitchell as he spoke. However, Mitchell did not feel the warmth at all, because the captain, who usually seemed like a gentle gentleman, was the most terrifying person on the ship. Captain Phylock not only likes to kill his enemies, but also likes to mentally torture them, making them taste emotions from hope to despair. Jim heard Phylock speak and didn't dare to do it again. The last time he blew a civilian's head off on the island, he had already made the self-proclaimed gentleman captain unhappy. If he dared to talk back now, he would be asking for trouble. On the other side, Atlas looked at the information about the Phylock pirates and judged that the route of Phylock and his gang was to go to Mean Island for supplies, and decided to intercept them in advance on the route to save them from harming the next island. "Captain, a small boat was spotted ahead, suspected to be marine." The lookout of the Phylock pirates discovered Atlas coming towards them and immediately reported the situation to Phylock. "Ha ha ha ha, Marine. I finally have something to do. I hope it can bring some fun to Lousy." Before Phylock said anything, Jim immediately jumped out impatiently and was very excited. Phylock didn't stop when he saw this. His eyes flickered slightly, but he wanted to let Jim test the waters first. He was always cautious, otherwise he wouldn't be alive now. Seeing that Atlas had been discovered, he didn't hesitate and jumped directly onto the boat. Stopping steadily on the bow of the pirate ship, he looked down at the group of calm, excited, or panicked sea dregs. "Hey, you kid over there, are you Marine?" It was still Jim who was shouting. Atlas didn't say anything. He just looked through the reward orders in his hand, pulled out Jim's one, and compared it carefully. With that look, Jim seemed to have been regarded as a dead man. "Hey, stop it. UBD, there must be a limit when you look down on people." Jim was obviously irritated by this behavior and was about to rush over and punch Atlas as he spoke. Atlas didn't panic when he saw this and slowly put away the reward order, seemingly confirming Jim's identity. Then he jumped down and faced him with fists raised. Puff! Powerful force penetrated, and the arm instantly bent in a strange posture. Jim obviously didn't expect Atlas's power to be so powerful, and he was instantly blasted into the cabin, spitting out a small piece of internal organs. The other pirates were stunned when they saw this, but soon shouted and waved their swords to greet Atlas. Seeing the situation, Atlas just moved his body slightly and dodged all the attacks, and the movements of his hand were not ambiguous. Pull out the standard saber from your waist. Hack, cut, pick. Just like chopping melons and vegetables, he slaughtered these pirates crazily. As the captain, Phylock did not rush forward like a surge of blood. Instead, he unhurriedly drew out the staff and sword in his hand and slowly retreated. After a while, most of the members of the Phylock pirates were killed by Atlas. There was almost no bloodline on Atlas's marine uniform, as if he just went for a walk. The deck was filled with scarlet, and the remaining survivors hesitated a little. After all, everyone is afraid of death. At this moment, a bit of cold light struck from the blind spot of Atlas's vision, accompanied by a slightly gloomy and proud face. Killing intent is coming. Chapter 8, Canine Fruit Power. User, my name is Phylock, and I am a pirate captain. I yearn for the elegant life of aristocrats, and I hate people who are too rude, especially my deputy captain Jim. Unfortunately, I met a Marine today who actually killed so many of the crew members I managed to recruit. What an unlovable brat. But this uninvited guest will die soon. As for my dear crew, your efforts are valuable. I've finally waited for you. Phylock. Atlas seemed to have expected it, and he easily dodged the sneak attack by turning his body slightly to one side. The long-charged fist punched hard on Phylick's chest. However, Phylick's figure was only slightly swaying, and there was an obvious fist mark on the clothes on his chest. How come? The calm posture that Atlas had maintained since boarding the ship finally became a little unbearable, and his pupils shrank violently due to shock. How could it be possible for Phylick's strength of 15 million belly to be able to block his attack so completely? One punch. Fu. I'm the Zoan Dogfruit main dog form ability user. Phylock smiled lowly. Although he was a little surprised that the sneak attack on Atlas failed to work, he did not feel at all that he would be defeated by the kid in front of him, and he can openly reveal his fruit ability just to make Atlas look desperate. After all, in the East Blue, the weakest sea, things like devil fruit only exist in legends. And he also obtained this priceless devil fruit 2 months ago when he robbed a merchant ship. Even the most common main dog fruit among Zoan ability users has greatly increased his strength. Even his men were not informed of this information, because he knows that only the cautious can survive on the cruel sea. He, Phylock, is one of the most stable, of course, because the time to obtain this fruit is still short. Phylock has not yet fully mastered the free switching of Zoan devil fruit's 3 forms, so he can only remain in the human-animal form to fight Atlas. However, the human-animal form is also the most powerful form. It was precisely because of the hat that Atlas didn't notice Phylick's raised ears. No matter why you came to trouble me, Captain Phylock, today you can't leave, Phylock said, throwing the staff knife in his hand casually on the deck, and licked his exposed claws. Did a mere devil fruit make you so inflated? Atlas experienced the initial surprise and slowly calmed down, staring intently at the man in front of him who was gradually becoming perverted because of the upcoming massacre. The remaining pirates around them took a step back unconsciously when they saw their captain showing a perverted expression, which left a huge open space for the two of them to fight. Phylock leaned forward slightly, showing an attacking posture. His calf muscles were tense, and his trouser legs, which were already unable to withstand the transformation, burst open instantly. Suddenly, just as the rags of clothing were flying in the air and somewhat blocking the view, Phylock moved. It rushed towards Atlas at a speed that was almost invisible to the naked eye. Atlas didn't panic when he saw this. Although Felix's speed at this time has somewhat exceeded the capture range of his dynamic vision, Atlas has not improved this year. Even if he has not yet reached superhuman physical fitness, his swordsmanship level has not reached the level of cutting iron. After all, he had gone through battles large and small, and he was on the verge of awakening to his vision. The fighting instinct, which is almost like that of a beast, has always been supporting his fighting. Maybe after going through this battle, observation haki can be successfully awakened. Atlas slowly closed his eyes, trying to capture Felix's figure with perception. "Kid, you succeeded in irritating me." Phylock felt a little angry when he saw Atlas closing his eyes. Naturally, he was a frog in a well and didn't know about the high-end skills of observation haki, so he thought Atlas was looking down on him. In Atlas's perception, a black shadow was quickly attacking him. He dwarfed and tried to avoid the attack, but he was still scratched on the back by Felix's claws, leaving 3 moderately deep blood marks. Under the influence of a horse charm, it healed itself at a speed visible to the naked eye, without leaving even a tiny scar. Phylock was slightly surprised when he saw Atlas's closed wound, and was obviously frightened by Atlas's amazing recovery power. The horse spell imprint in Atlas' mind is basically invisible. It will only take a while to be completely digested, and it will definitely give him a surprise. As for the current small wound, it is obviously insignificant to Atlas's current terrifying vitality. "Who are you, little brat?" Phylock was already a bit angry at this time, and he gradually began to think about retreating. "Kill your people." Atlas didn't talk nonsense. He held the sword in both hands, his eyes were stern, and he showed a standard starting posture. "Itorio Iris." But it was directly blocked by Felix's sharp claws, but it was not without success. Phylock secretly shook his arm that was numb from the collision just now. There's even some slight pain and maybe a slight bone crack. In terms of current strength, he is far inferior to Atlas. On the one hand, it's because Atlas's strength has grown to a very terrifying level under the hellish training, and on the other hand, it's not long since Phylock got the devil fruit. Moreover, the main dog fruit is not a fruit known for its strength, so it is undoubtedly at a disadvantage when compared to Atlas in terms of power. Ping, 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 ping. After several rounds of fierce collisions, Phylock gradually became exhausted. Zoan Devil Fruit gives him strong toughness, allowing him to still maintain strong combat effectiveness. But he has also realized that the current situation cannot continue. Damn it, it seems that I have to find a way to wear him down. Phylock cursed Atlas fiercely in his heart, and, at the same time, turned his attention to the remaining pirates. "Boss Phylock." The pirates felt chills running down their backs at Felix's gaze, and then they saw Phylock heading straight towards them, with Atlas following closely behind. So the pirates had to take up their weapons to fight against Atlas. But this is undoubtedly a mantis blocking the car. "Ah, damn you, kid. Please let me go, I'm sorry." Angry curses, pleas for mercy, and confessions kept ringing in Atlas's ears, but he showed no mercy at all. None of these pirates were innocent. Soon, the remaining pirates were killed by Atlas, but the physical strength consumed by Atlas was a drop in the bucket. But this also bought Phylock a little breathing time. At the same time, it also made Phylock realize his own advantages. Speed. Use the speed attribute given to him by the main dog fruit to fight with Atlas, and you might even have a chance to win. Chapter 9 Awakening. Observation haki having made up his mind, Phylock decided to use his own speed to fight Atlas. Brush, brush, brush. Phylock continued to attack Atlas, and soon left a series of wounds on Atlas' body, but soon there were only some white marks left. Judging from Atlas's current physique, his speed is still slightly inferior to that of Phylock in human-animal form. "Jah, Marine kid, you know you're scared, right?" Phylock tried to scare Atlas away with words. Atlas didn't retort when he heard the words, but just carefully felt the experience of using perception to fight just now, and his understanding of seeing, hearing, and color also improved. "I don't know much about Conqueror's Haki, Atlas. I only know that Haki is a derivative of spiritual will. Armament Haki requires the body to reach an inhuman level before it can awaken from the body. Compared with the armed color, the awakening of the knowledge color requires more talent and has no hard requirements on the body. At present, it seems that Atlas has this talent. Conquerors is even more mysterious. It is said that only one person in a million has the talent of Conquerors, which is even rarer than the other two types of hockey. Atlas felt that he was about to awaken, and he was almost there, and currently Phylock is his best sparring partner. Originally, Atlas had no chance to awaken hockey in East Blue. After all, it was a bit difficult to find a pirate who could pose a threat to him. Now Phyllic's strength after getting this fruit is probably at the level of 30 million to 40 million bounty, although the overall strength is weaker than him. Due to the characteristics of the fruit, the speed is stronger than Atlas. Thinking of this, Atlas looked at Phylock eagerly. He didn't expect that he would get such a reward by avenging his predecessor. Sure enough, good people are rewarded. Phylock was startled by Atlas's eyes and immediately shook his head, throwing away the discomfort. Then he grinned and bared his teeth and claws to attack Atlas, but Atlas still used perception to deal with it. Right, that's what it feels like. Hurry up, hurry up. Atlas felt a little excited. Suddenly, a red light flashed in Atlas's eyes. Then his perception of the world was like a broken egg, ushering in the dawn from darkness, and Phyllic's attacks appeared in Atlas's mind as if they were in slow motion. See and hear. Awakened. Atlas grinned. Ha! Lousy won't play with you anymore. Oomph. Arrogant brat Phylock didn't care, thinking that Atlas was a little insane after being beaten by him, although he just didn't know why he felt like he was seen through. Phylock responded with a huge fist, which hit Phylock hard on the face. How come? Phylock was shocked. How could Atlas suddenly move so fast? As expected, fisting to the point of physical contact is a man's romance. Atlas was not prepared to explain anything. He threw aside the Marine Standard fixed knife in his hand and pressed his casserole-sized fist covered with fist cocoons. The scarlet color in his eyes flashed away, and his sense of knowledge was fully activated. He easily dodged Phyllic's claws, and then opened his bow from left to right, blowing Phyllic's head directly. The red and white brains shot out, but Atlas relied on his sight and color to avoid it perfectly, without any trace of it. Get yourself dirty. Phylock didn't understand until his death how Atlas, who had been fighting back and forth with him a second ago, suddenly showed such a crushing attitude towards him. In fact, it is not difficult to understand that Atlas's physique is already superior to Phyllic's, but his speed is slightly inferior. Before, he just suppressed his strength slightly to play with him in order to awaken his knowledge. After taking care of Phylock, Atlas was ready to see if anyone was lucky enough to survive. Suddenly, a sudden change occurred. A burly black shadow rushed out of the cabin at high speed, then jumped up high and landed firmly on the boat that Atlas was rowing over. His hands paddled the oars as fast as if they were equipped with engines. Atlas was almost shocked when he saw this scene. The black figure just now was Jim, the vice captain of the Phylock Pirates. This guy was pretending to be dead from the beginning, and when he saw Phylock was instantly killed, he couldn't wait to escape. Although he usually seems simple-minded, he is not mentally retarded. Until his death, Phylock would never have thought that Jim, whom he usually looked down on, had such a scheming mind. Naturally, Atlas would not let Jim escape like this. If there was no error in the memory of his predecessor, the Kanos couple would have been killed by this guy. Atlas thought about it and entered the cockpit to chase Jim, who had already escaped for some distance. But the embarrassing thing was he couldn't drive a sailboat. In desperation, Atlas didn't care about anything and plunged directly into the sea, wanting to swim over to chase him. Anyway, he still had plenty of physical strength now. Damn you, kid. Jim looked at Atlas, who was still chasing after him, and began to curse countless times. God knows how Atlas still has such abundant physical energy. Jim now wishes that a sea king would swallow Atlas and turn it into feces and excrete it. Finally, half a day passed, and the distance between Atlas and Jim was getting closer and closer, so Jim collapsed in the constant pursuit, trying to survive by begging for mercy. But how could Atlas believe him? He jumped out of the water and wanted to kill him with one punch. Jim was unwilling to accept this and raised the oar in his hand to try to block Atlas' iron fist. But to no avail. The huge fist punched hard through the oar, and the oar instantly turned into a sky full of sawdust. Jim also fell to the ground with a bang. Atlas stood firmly on the bow of the boat and kicked Jim's dead body off the boat to feed the fish. Galoo, galoo, as the sun sets, the calm sea surface is covered with a layer of bright red sunlight, and a small boat floats aimlessly. Lying on the boat was a young man wearing a slightly damaged marine uniform. His well-developed muscles showed off his sharpness without any scruples, and his delicate yet tough face was full of helplessness. It was Atlas who had just chased the pirates. Atlas didn't expect to be so unlucky, because the oar was shattered by him in the battle just now. So now he could only drift with the tide, and he didn't carry any extra supplies on the ship, so he naturally started to starve. But most seriously, he is lost now. I didn't think much of it when I was chasing him, but I didn't know he would swim directly into an unfamiliar sea area. The sea and land are different without reference objects. No matter how strong the sense of direction is, it will not help. Chapter 10, Atlas Wandering in the End. Atlas couldn't bear the hunger and went into the water to catch a small sea kings. However, there were no tools to make fire on the boat, so he simply ate it raw. Not to mention, the sea kings in the pirate world have a unique flavor when eaten raw. I don't know whether it's due to the special geographical environment or the climate, but even the raw meat doesn't have much fishy smell, and it melts in your mouth. As for parasites, let alone whether there are parasites in this small sea kings. Even if there are parasites, Atlas is not afraid at all with his current body. And after killing Jim, Atlas unexpectedly found that the horse talisman had disappeared from his mind, which meant that he had completely turned the horse talisman into his physical talent. Although his combat effectiveness has not been greatly improved for the time being, what has improved is his physical potential. To put it simply, based on Atlas's previous talent, even if he exhausts his potential in the future, he will probably only have the strength of an ordinary vice admiral in the team. But with the help of the horse talisman's ability, his physical talents are already a monster among monsters. The so-called monsters are those who can grow rapidly through continuous and rigorous training. This is the case with Vice Admiral, the three major monsters of Marine today. The most obvious change is that Atlas has automatically learned the skill of life return and turned it into his own instinctive talent. He can quickly absorb energy from food all the time and use it 100%. Of course, the physical strength alone cannot be compared with Big Mom's steel balloon, but this is also what makes Atlas become a top powerhouse. The frequent use of the horse talisman before was already on the verge of being digested, but I don't know why it couldn't be completely digested. Atlas probably felt incompatible with his body because he was originally a visitor from another world, but after avenging his predecessor, Atlas felt that he was incompatible with his body. The obsession with the existence of the body itself disappeared, thus allowing Atlas to have complete control over the body. After filling his stomach a little, Atlas began to activate his knowledge. While not bad, the radiation range of the initial awakening is about 5,000 meters. It seems that my talent is pretty good. After thinking about it, Atlas fell into a beautiful sleep. After all, he was exhausted from the battle during the day. Well, the next morning, Atlas got up early and took a look at the surrounding situation. Have to. Still no island in sight. He simply jumped off the boat and started swimming happily, dragging the boat forward while swimming. For several days in a row, Atlas' life consisted of being in a daze occasionally, and then activating his telescope to see if any ships were passing near him. When he was hungry, he would go to the sea to catch some fish to eat, but this life did not change after several days, and Atlas was going crazy. See Circle Calendar July 1st, 1500 weather. Sunny, it's another boring day. After finishing my daily swimming training, I still put out the observation color to see if there are any boats. But I don't know if it's because I use observation color frequently every day. I feel like my observation color range has a certain range. The dots got bigger. Forget it, never mind. I'm hungry. Let's get some fish to eat first. See Circle Calendar July 2nd, 1500 weather. Cloudy ugh. I still didn't see any boats passing by today, but now I feel like vomiting when I see fish, especially raw fish. I probably won't want to eat fish again in the future. Sea Circle Calendar, July 3rd, 1500 weather. Sunny, the weather today is as good as ever, but my mood is not very good. Damn it, just bring me a pirate ship. Atlas, who was really bored, finally started his diary on the 6th day after rafting. Of course, all this was done in his mind before going to bed every day. Finally, on the 10th day, when Atlas was eating raw fish, a ship broke into his sight. A marine warship, still a doghead. Atlas was stunned for a moment when he saw the warship clearly, and then started to get excited. Isn't this the ship of marine hero Vice Admiral Garp? However, Luffy was not born yet at this time. So how could he meet Garp in East Blue? Hey, is there anyone? Help save me. Atlas shouted to the warship with his hands in the shape of a trumpet. After Atlas's voice was heard, the warship seemed to hear his cry for help and slowly turned the warship back to the direction of Atlas. A few minutes later, on the broad deck of the dog-headed warship, a middle-aged man with black hair and a cloak of justice. His explosive muscles almost burst the marine uniform he was wearing. He had an awkward smile on his face and shouted proudly at the phone bug next to him. Ha 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 ha! Sengoku, all your Sunbae are here. Ah, damn Garp. Forget it. Remember to come back soon after your vacation. New World still needs you. A phone bug wearing toad glasses said, imitating Sengoku's tone over there. I know, Garp said while picking his nostrils nonchalantly, and immediately hung up the phone before Sengoku could say anything. Atlas had already boarded the warship, but he just stayed aside and did not dare to interrupt the two bosses. Kid over there. Ha ha. Your name is Atlas, right? After talking to Sengoku on the phone, Garp finally turned his attention to Atlas. Although Atlas didn't know why Garp knew his name, he still responded honestly. When I was passing by Logtown, that kid Randall asked me to look for a missing Marine. I didn't expect to meet you here. What a mess. Atlas kid, ha ha. Garp seemed to notice Atlas' confusion and explained casually. Atlas was a little embarrassed when he heard this. He thought it would be an easy battle, but he didn't expect so many changes. The people in the base must have thought that I had been sacrificed. Bogart, take this kid down. Garp looked at the adjutant Bogart next to him and ordered. Then he tilted his head and fell asleep. Fell asleep seeing this scene. Even if Atlas was mentally prepared for Garp's unreliability, he was still shown off. Bogart, on the other hand, was not surprised and walked directly to the cabin, gesturing for Atlas to follow him. Finally, after taking a nice bath in hot water in the bathroom, and then going to the restaurant to eat a meal for 15 people, Atlas felt that he was still alive in this world. Chapter 11, Garp and the Iron Fist of Love, Hoo Ho Ho. This was the third day Atlas boarded the Garp ship, and he started his daily exercise program on the second day. First, there are 4 unshakable hours of physical training, and then sword practice begins. He also practiced observation hockey by incorporating half an hour of meditation after all tasks were completed. Hey, Atlas kid, come here and let me give you some advice. Ha 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 ha. Garp on the side seemed a little bored, stroking his nostrils while calling Atlas over. Atlas was also a little excited when he heard this. As a marine hero, Garp was the man who forced Roger, the Pirate King, into desperate situations many times. It could be said to be the ceiling combat power in the pirate world. If we can get his guidance, the benefits to Atlas will undoubtedly be huge. But as soon as he walked in front of Garp, Atlas felt an indescribable sense of oppression. It's not just physical pressure, but also moral pressure, but Atlas is not so easily defeated. There was a look of determination in his eyes. The strongest man in the world would not fall in front of such a thing. Garp saw a flash of appreciation in his eyes when Atlas withstood his momentum so easily. He immediately returned to his careless look and patted Atlas's shoulder hard several times, almost knocking him down. Ha ha ha, you're a good kid. I just took a look at your training. You pay more attention to physical training. There is no problem in the general direction. Physical fitness is your strong foundation. Looking at Garp's thick arms, Atlas strongly agreed. Let me be your opponent and feel the iron fist of my love. Garp didn't say much. He was not as good as Zephyr in teaching students. He advocated teaching in battle. So he directly threw his iron fists into Atlas's face without waiting for Atlas to object. Atlas was startled, his pupils instantly turned red, and the color of sight was turned on. Boom! Ah! It hurt so much. Even with his sense of sight and color, he still couldn't avoid Garp's fist. But what puzzled Atlas was that even though Garp did not use the weapon color, Atlas still felt a penetrating pain. Ha ha ha! This is a fist filled with my love. Garp knew that Atlas would be confused like this, so he explained. Before Atlas could fully comprehend these words, Garp's fist struck again. Ah! Don't slap me in the face. Vice Admiral Garp. Ah! Be gentle, be gentle. Ah! Old man Garp, wait for me. Medical room Atlas sat on a chair with his head covered with bruises. A medical soldier next to him carefully applied medicine to him and then bandaged him. Just laugh if you want to. Don't hold it in. Atlas turned to Bogart, who was holding back a smile, and said, No. Ha! I didn't mean to laugh. Ha ha, Atlas was helpless. The sun slowly rose from the sea level, and dark shadows flashed from time to time under the calm sea. Atlas, aboard the huge dog-headed warship, had just finished its morning training and was enjoying his breakfast comfortably. Yo, kid, you recovered so quickly. Garp was also a little surprised. Although he didn't use his weapon color yesterday, he attached his will to his fist. There will be no internal injuries, but flesh injuries are inevitable. I didn't expect to fully recover in one night. Atlas didn't explain, although he suspected that Garp was just bored and just wanted to beat him up. But after yesterday's severe beating, he also felt that his body had grown slightly. At the same time, he was also quite interested in what Garp called the Iron Fist of Love. Come on, continue yesterday's training. Please, Vice Admiral Garp, Atlas said calmly, like a prisoner about to be taken to the execution ground, with a look of determination. Boom! Bang, bang, bang. Another plain and boring day of beatings. 3 days later, old man Garp, where we going? Atlas asked confused as he munched on the donut. As for why it's not Senbei, according to Garp, of course you have to eat the delicious food first. He had already eaten the sunbae, and then he dragged Atlas into a donut eating competition with him. Atlas, with a revenge mentality, decided to eat all the donuts from Garp. Well, I'm going back to Windmill Village for a vacation. I'll take a look at my grandson, by the way. Garp replied casually. Vice Admiral Garp has a grandson. Alice was a little surprised. Logically speaking, Luffy shouldn't have been born yet. What kind of grandson did Garp think he was? Oh, that's my adopted grandson. It seems that it is Ace. In the anime, it seems that Ace was also born this year. He is probably only a few months old now. It is really arrogant to leave him to be raised by bandits at such a young age. Wow, there are 1,000 I win. Haha, suddenly, Garp yelled, and then snored. Alice was also speechless. Although he didn't sleep for 2 days and 2 nights, you had to fall asleep so quickly. No wonder Minka would be stabbed later. Atlas stood up and stretched, then moved on the spot, turned to look at Bogart aside, and said sheepishly, Mr. Bogart, could you please give me some advice? I want to see the gap between me and the truly strong. No problem. Let's go a little further away so we don't disturb Vice Admiral Garp. Bogart also agreed generously. After all, he was very optimistic about Atlas, a junior Marine. As they spoke, the two of them drew their sabers, and Atlas' eyes gradually became serious. He knew that he was definitely no match for Bogart. Conqueror's haki could only see and hear, and his swordsmanship had not yet reached the level of cutting iron, and he had not yet learned the 6 moves. But a truly strong man must have a heart that is not afraid of powerful enemies. Being timid is not his style. Itoriu Iris. Atlas struck first, trying to preempt the attack, but Bogart easily blocked his sword move with a casual slash, and said with a relaxed expression, The move is good, the foundation is very solid, but the strength is a bit lacking. As he spoke, the corner of his mouth curled up, and his leg muscles suddenly swelled. Shave. Bogart's figure disappeared from Atlas' sight in an instant. Atlas quickly held the knife in both hands. A red light flashed in his eyes, seeing and hearing the color. Locking. Kyang. Atlas, who was using his full power to see and see, could barely see Bogart's movements clearly, and then the two swords met. However, Even though Atlas held the sword in both hands, he was still completely defeated in power and flew out directly and hit the ship. Only along the way can we stop. Call the gap is too big. Atlas was defeated after only a few moves, but he was not depressed because of this and instead became more motivated to become stronger. What's wrong? It seemed that the noise of Atlas hitting the side of the ship was a bit loud, which directly woke up Garp, who was still snoring, and then he saw Atlas sitting on the ground in embarrassment. Chapter 12, Windmill Village. Arrival after several days of sailing, we finally arrived at Garp's hometown, Windmill Village. After Atlas's last battle with Bogart, he had a deeper understanding of the real powerhouse, so he trained harder every day. Even during the daily sparring with Garp, Atlas didn't yell. It makes Garp feel a little boring. "Hey, Atlas kid, do you want to go down and take a look? Haha." Garp said to Atlas, who was thinking about how to find an excuse to slip away. Yes, of course." Atlas nodded quickly. He really gave me a pillow when he felt sleepy. Seeing how considerate Garp is, I'll forgive him for beating me up before. In fact, Atlas wanted to go to Windmill Village mainly to see if he could have a chance to see Ace. After all, he was also the man who saw off the Pirate King in person. Then I stopped by the tavern in Windmill Village to see the proprietress Makino. The woman who was said to have taken down the red-haired woman was also suspected of giving birth to a child for her. Ahem. Let me make it clear first of all that it was just a casual thing to see the proprietress, and I definitely didn't go there specially. Windmill Village is an inconspicuous small village in the Kingdom of Goa, but two big figures have already appeared in this inconspicuous small village. Who would have known that the famous marine hero and the notorious, most vicious criminal revolutionary Long also came from here? What is even more shocking is that the relationship between these two people is father and son. The Windmill Village is in a remote area of the Kingdom of Goa, basically isolated from the lively urban area. Lying between the two is the huge Gorgon Mountain. Due to the care of the marine hero Garp and the remote location, the people in this village live a very happy life. The place is quiet and peaceful, except for a group of bandits who are always wandering around nearby. Of course, they're talking about Sig and his group. Atlas, who was looking forward to it, jumped off the boat, asked a local villager about the location of Makino's Tavern, and headed straight for his destination. Makino's Tavern is located in the center of Windmill Village. It was time for lunch. When Atlas arrived, there were only a few people sitting in the tavern. Ordinary villagers naturally did not have the conditions to come to taverns and other places to spend money every day, but because of Makino's, the cooking and winemaking skills are excellent, and the prices are very reasonable. So basically every day some villagers come here to have a toothpaste to quench their hangover. "Welcome, little Marine." Makino saw Atlas walking in and looking at the tavern curiously, so he smiled softly and said hello. Makino is now in her early teens, with shiny green hair and a face full of collagen. She looks very gentle and pure when she smiles. Although she is not as intellectual as the older sister, she will be 10 years later. The feeling is also unique. This little marine guy came here with Grandpa Garp, right? Makino didn't speak when she saw Atlas and just looked at her from time to time. This made her a little embarrassed, but she still asked politely. Yes, my name is Kano's Atlas." Atlas also realized how impolite his behavior was and immediately replied loudly. "So Marine, what do you need?" Makino didn't care about Atlas's rude behavior just now and asked Atlas about his needs. "Give me a rum bar." Although he's just turned 14, it is not a problem for him to digest a little wine with his physical fitness. Moreover, before disembarking, Bogart also gave him some money for him to spend. Although it is not much, buying some wine is still a problem. Enough. On the other side, Garp and Atlas got off the boat in one step, then went to the village chief's house to say hello, and then went straight to Gorgon Mountain. With his strong physique, Garp managed to reach the lair of the bandit Dayton family in a short time. "Hey, the kid is well taken care of," Garp said happily as he watched the lively Ace crawling around on the ground. "Golly." Dayton, who was teasing Ace, was so frightened that his eyes nearly popped out when he heard this sudden voice. After all, the person he was most afraid of was Garp. "When are you going to pick up this kid? I feel very annoyed when I see him. We are bandits, not babysitters." Dayton quickly calmed down the doting expression he had just teased Ace with and carefully questioned Garp. The younger brother on the side also echoed, do you want me to take you to jail? Garp frowned and used his usual tactics to threaten Dayton. Woo! The Dayton family immediately surrendered when they heard they were about to be taken away, but they still couldn't help feeling aggrieved by Garp's threat. They silently ran to the side and hugged each other, crying loudly. Little Ace on the side didn't know what was going on. He just looked at Garp with curious eyes. He didn't know if he recognized him. After all, when Garp first adopted him, he was just a baby who couldn't speak. Come on, little Ace, call me Grandpa. I am your grandpa. Garp's heart melted when he saw Ace's cute look. He picked up little Ace, who was sitting on the ground, and started to rub the stubble on Ace's face. How could little Ace be so happy with his little hands? He pushed Garp away as hard as he could, but Garp didn't care. Instead, he kept grinning stupidly. I don't know what Roger would think if he were around. His son is actually called Grandpa Garp. Isn't this a clear attempt to take advantage of Roger? Here Garp is enjoying the family life of his grandfather and grandson, but Atlas, who is drinking in the pub and watching the landlady, is in trouble. With a bang, the small door of the tavern was kicked open violently. After seeing the person clearly, the noisy tavern instantly became quiet, like a misfired flintlock gun. This movement immediately alerted Atlas, who was sitting in the corner, and he was speechless. Even if he drinks, he will run into trouble. When Atlas looked up, he thought, isn't this the Bandit King Sig, who angrily smashed the 4 emperors and stepped on the future Pirate King? How could he meet him by such a coincidence? Although Sig is not very old now, he looks very old and as vulgar as he was more than 10 years later. After Sig entered the tavern, he glanced around and finally fixed his eyes on Atlas, who was wearing a Marine uniform. He immediately had the idea of playing tricks on him. After all, Atlas looked young and probably didn't have much strength. Thinking of Sig, he curled his lips and said to Atlas, "Hey, Marine brat over there. Lousy has taken a liking to your position. If you know better now, get out of here, Lousy." Atlas heard this and ignored him. "Mate, are you deaf? Can't you hear Lousy talking to you?" Seeing that Atlas didn't give him any face, Sig couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed on his face. But Makino couldn't stand it anymore. Although he was a little afraid of Sig, Atlas was a customer in her store, and he had to ensure the safety of his customers, so he wanted to step forward and stop Sig. However, Atlas was not as good-tempered as Shanks. He stood up and crossed Makino to confront Sig. His momentum almost turned into substance and pressed against Sig. In an instant, Sig felt a need to urinate between his legs, and cold sweat poured out on his forehead. He felt as if he was being stared at by some ferocious beast, and he suddenly no longer cared about face and face and was surprised in front of everyone in the tavern. The eyes and the puzzled looks of the younger brothers fled. Seeing Sig retreating so easily, Makino was a little surprised, but he was relieved when he thought that Atlas had followed Garp, and soon the tavern returned to its previous liveliness. The arrival of Bandit King Sig is just an episode in Atlas's journey to Windmill Village. Chapter 13, Little Ace, and kidnapping the warm sun in the early morning is a little shy, half hidden in the clouds, and rays of golden sunshine shine on the Windmill Village with smoke curling up. The Windmill Village under the sun is so quiet and peaceful, like a paradise, not messing with the world. Of dust, Atlas has been hanging out in Makino's tavern these days, and the previous incident of scaring off the bandit Sig also made Makino favor him a lot, and he even quietly discounted his consumption. This is true. This saved Atlas a lot of money. However, such days are too boring after all, and Atlas is not a person who can stand his temper. So he plans to go to Gorgon Mountain to encounter Garp and Ace, and maybe he can kidnap Ace in the future. Go be a Marine. When I thought of this, I just did it, lifted up my 2 long legs and walked toward the direction of Gorgon Mountain. A few hours later, Atlas looked helplessly at the tiger that roared at him in warning. If he remembered correctly, this big guy should be the king of Gorgon Mountain in the future, and he also made the 3 Ace brothers eat a lot. What a pain. Go, don't block my way. Atlas waved his hand impatiently, regardless of whether the guy understood it or not, and raised his legs to walk past it, and the sound it made became deeper, and the hair on his body exploded like an electric shock. Atlas didn't care either. It would be better if the tiger let him walk over Otherwise, he wouldn't mind tasting the tiger meat. King Gorgon seemed to sense Atlas's thoughts and just let out low roars from time to time, but had no intention of attacking. After Atlas bypassed the tiger, he turned on observation hockey to avoid various obstacles and clinging creatures. The journey was much smoother. Although Atlas didn't know where Dayton's house was, he would be right to go to the center. After going around in circles for several hours, Atlas finally caught Garp's figure. "Hey, Mr. Garp, you can help me find him for a while. By the way, when are we leaving?" Atlas approached and saw a child with short black hair, single eyelids, and big eyes, with a little bit of Madara on his face. Not only did it not destroy this innocence, but it made it even more cute. It was little Ace. At this time, Ace was still tugging on Garp's short beard and laughing loudly, calling Grandpa vaguely in his mouth, and Garp was looking at little Ace with a doting look on his face. After a few days of getting along, the grandfather and grandson went from strangers at the beginning to now enjoying themselves. Ace is not a shy guy to begin with. After all, he is of the bloodline of the Pirate King, so he quickly became familiar with Garp. "Ha ha ha ha. Atlas kid, how did you find this place?" "This is my grandson, Ace." Garp lifted little Ace above his head and proudly showed off to Atlas. Little Ace also opened his confused eyes and looked at Atlas curiously. "Joe, little Ace, come on. Call Uncle Kanos. Come on, be good." Atlas said with a bad smile. "This means Roger and Whitebeard and I are of the same generation. In the future, Luffy will have to call him Uncle when he sees him." Tears flowed out of the corner of his mouth in frustration as he thought about it. Little Ace seemed to sense Atlas's ill intentions, so he turned around and got into Garp's arms, not wanting to pay attention to Atlas teasing. Atlas didn't care and continued teasing little Ace until little Ace looked like he was about to cry. "By the way, old man, when are we leaving?" Atlas asked the previous question again. "In a few days, I'll drop you off when I pass by Logue Town." Garp seemed to have thought of Colonel Randall's request and answered casually. In the next few days, Atlas would either tease little Ace or go to Gorgon Mountain to perform a tooth ceremony to satisfy the Five Zong Temple. Anyway, there are a lot of people who handle the food. At most, he would give them the furs and teeth of these animals. As a reward, happy time always passes quickly, and it's finally time to leave Windmill Village. Villagers of all sizes in Windmill Village spontaneously came to the dock to bid farewell to Garp. After all, whether they admit it or not, Windmill Village can always be so peaceful and peaceful thanks to Garp's care. After a while, after counting the materials and personnel on the ship, the Cocephalus ship slowly left the shore, and the villagers gradually turned into irregular black spots until they disappeared completely. Sailing on the sea is always boring and boring, so Garp started to pick up Atlas guidance again. Atlas tore off his marine uniform, exposing his muscular upper body, his sharply angular body with almost no fat shone in the sunlight. Opposite him was Garp, who was wearing a gray and white suit. Kid, what I taught you before was the power of will. It doesn't matter if you don't understand it now. Now, I'll tell you how to perfectly exert your own power." Garp laughed loudly. Although this technique sounds mundane, its practicality is terrifying. For example, Atlas's power value is now 100, but the force of his punches is only 70 or even lower, and 30 of his power has escaped. And what Garp wants to teach him is to use a strength value of 100 to deal 120 damage. "Come on, Vice Admiral Garp." Atlas also understood the pros and cons, so he showed no timidity at all. Garp was one of the absolute strong men in the old era, and he fought countless battles with his iron fist. Most pirates would give up just hearing his name, not to mention that he is still at his peak now. His combat experience and combat skills are naturally worthy of Atlas' serious study. The other soldiers on the warship were also attracted by the battle between the two. One was that the battle between the two could also teach them something. Getting stronger in this cruel sea was precious. The other was that it can also add a little fun to boring sea voyages. Brush. A stream of swords and water falling. Atlas swung his knife and slashed at Garp from top to bottom, and a layer of black substance suddenly appeared on Garp's hand, armament haki. One thing that must be explained here is that people who have not awakened haki cannot see armament haki, and Atlas's knowledge color can naturally see the armed color. Boom! The two collided, with Garp motionless, but Atlas took several steps back before reluctantly stopping. The verdict was immediately pronounced. Come again. Atlas is not discouraged either. Continue to bully the body and stab straight through. One sword-style bird thorn. Garp was also unprepared. The middle door was wide open, but a dark patch of darkness appeared on his chest under his clothes. Partially armed, the right fist was swung up directly and hit Atlas's head. Atlas was startled, drew his knife to block, and narrowly blocked the punch. The fight between the two men lasted for more than an hour, and finally ended with Atlas falling to the ground with his head covered in weight. However, Atlas relied on his powerful talent to absorb all the combat experience, and such battles would appear from time to time in the next few days. So much so that it allowed other soldiers to talk more after dinner, which added a little more fun to the boring voyage. Until Chapter 14, Shimotsuki Village, East Blue, a huge dog-headed warship sailed slowly on the calm sea. A few seagulls flew in the sky from time to time. The calm weather made people extremely comfortable. Of course, if you don't take into account his big head and the weird looks of the sailors around him, you'll be in a better mood. Where's the next island we will pass? Atlas grabbed a sailor who was passing by him and asked. After leaving Log Town for so long, he still missed everyone, especially Captain Wright and Smoker. His feelings for Captain Wright Atlas are very complicated. On the one hand, Wright was the first person he met when he came to this world, and he gave him a lot of help when he first joined Marine. To him, Wright was more like a big brother or a father figure, and he was grateful to Wright from the bottom of his heart. We'll be arriving at Shimotsuki Village soon. Although Marine was a little surprised to be pulled, he still answered honestly. After all, Atlas's hard work and talent made him admire him, even if he looked a bit funny now. Shimotsuki Village, Atlas felt that the name sounded familiar, and then he realized that this was the place where Zoro learned swordsmanship when he was a child. He immediately frowned again, as if he was thinking about something difficult to decide. After a while, Atlas's frown relaxed, and he strode towards Garp, who was enjoying a meal in the restaurant. Vice Admiral Garp, I would like to disembark at Shimotsuki Village later. Atlas said solemnly to Garp. Why, don't you go back to Log Town? Garp said while chewing the piece of meat. I heard that there is a kendo dojo in Shimotsuki Village. The owner of the dojo, Koshiro, is a very powerful swordsman, so I wanted to study there for a while. It just so happened that my swordsmanship has hit a bottleneck. Alice explained in detail. So, I asked Mr. Garp to tell Colonel Randall when he passes by Log Town. I will return to Log Town in a year at the latest. Please, Atlas said as he stood up and bowed heavily to Garp. This bow was not only to ask Garp to send a message, but also to thank Garp for taking him in during this time and teaching him without reservation. I know it's true, you brat. Garp muttered impatiently, but there was no dissatisfaction in his eyes. It was obvious that he was very satisfied with Atlas. Garp has brought out countless Marines over the years, and the most famous among them is the current Marine monster Vice Admiral Kingsley Kazan. After such a long period of training, Garp can definitely conclude that Atlas's potential is not inferior to Kazan's, and the justice in his heart is no less than that of other Marines. He will definitely become the mainstay of Marine in the future. After getting Garp's permission, Atlas returned to his bedroom to prepare some daily necessities and clothes, and then asked Bogart for some money for emergencies. However, he did not plan to wear a Marine uniform. After all, he had heard that Koshiro had some connections with the Revolutionary Army in his previous life. He was not afraid that Koshiro would be unfavorable to him. First of all, he believed that Koshiro had the courage to be a strong man and would not take action against him. Secondly, the Revolutionary Army is different from the pirates. They are the kind of people who kill innocent people indiscriminately. He doesn't want to reveal Marine's identity. He just doesn't want to be shut out by Koshiro. After getting off the boat, Atlas asked the local villagers about the location of Koshiro's dojo, then arranged his clothes and walked towards the dojo. Koshiro's dojo is located in the center of Shimatsuki village. Most of the residents in the village have learned 1 or 2 skills at the dojo. Most of these villagers have practiced swordsmanship in the dojo when they were young. It is just that the owner of the dojo at that time may have been Koshiro's father, Kozaburo, and the cost of going to the dojo to study is not very high, so most of the villagers are happy to send their children to study here. After all, having power in this precarious world is not a bad thing. Soon Atlas arrived at the destination of his trip and saw the legendary Koshiro Dojo. After looking around for a while, he found that the dojo was dominated by a low wall. There were several houses located inside the wall. I guess it was Koshiro and his family use it for daily living. But what puzzled Atlas was that there was no sound of swordsmanship practicing in the dojo. Instead, it was so quiet that it almost made Atlas wonder if he had gone to the wrong place. Just as Atlas was about to knock on the door to greet him, a loud cry of a baby broke the silence, and Atlas immediately understood the reason. What a coincidence! Atlas sighed in his heart. It is estimated that now is the time when Kuina was born. No wonder there is no sound in the dojo. But Atlas knocked on the door of the dojo. Dong, dong, dong. The knock on the door was not loud, but Koshiro should be able to detect his arrival with his 5 senses. Soon, the door opened, and a smiling face came into view. This frightened Atlas, and he thought he was going to get a droopy face, because according to his memories in his previous life, Koshiro probably disliked his daughter because he wanted a boy. The child comes to inherit his dojo. It seems that the rumors are wrong. Koshiro is not a patriarchal guy. I guess Koshiro just wanted Kuina to live in peace and stability, so he deliberately said those words to hurt Kuina. But he didn't expect Kuina to be so stubborn. Big, but counterproductive. Hello, Mr. Koshiro. I have heard about you for a long time, and I came here to learn swordsmanship from you. Atlas went straight to the point and stated his purpose. Let's talk about it first. Koshiro did not express his position, but instead invited Atlas to come in with a smile. After following Koshiro in, Atlas looked around carefully. It was similar to what he saw outside. The entry point was a medium-sized playground. It was estimated that the disciples usually practiced here. After arriving in the lobby, Koshiro and Atlas found a futon to sit down respectively, and then they had time to look at both sides. Just as Atlas imagined, Koshiro is a middle-aged man with a very gentle appearance. He always has a smile on his face. I don't know if his daughter was born today or is just like this normally. His glasses are not too thick and hang on the bridge of his nose. The eyes that are always squinting make it impossible to see through his inner thoughts. My daughter was born today. I apologize for the inconvenience, madam, of coming out to greet the guests. Koshiro said, slightly apologetically. Koshiro speaks in a slightly formal manner, a bit like Wanakuni's way of speaking. I already know the purpose of your visit. If you don't mind the humble abode, I would like to exchange my kendo experience with you, Koshiro said with a smile. Atlas also understood that he didn't want to accept him as his disciple, but he also didn't want to offend Marine, so he agreed to let him stay and learn swordsmanship. It seems that there is no point in being careful in front of such a strong man. Koshiro probably discovered it as early as when the Garp ship docked based on his knowledge and skills. Okay, then I'll bother you, Mr. Koshiro. Now that everything has been said, this is the only way to go to Atlas. Anyway, it doesn't mean that you get nothing. Chapter 15 Buster Call West Blue. O'Hara. History is something that belongs to all mankind, and no one has the right to stop people's curiosity to explore it. A gray-haired old man with firm eyes spoke out his struggle against the world government word by word. But with the sound of cannons, O'Hara was suddenly drowned in the smoke. Also buried were a group of pioneers pursuing the truth. The blazing flames are clawing at the tree of Omniscient, and the entire island has turned into a sea of fire. The sounds of wailing and arguing are endless, just like purgatory descending on the world. And on the edge of the coast, the top officer of CP9, Spangdane, was laughing wildly. He seemed to be unable to control himself for the next promotion and fortune, and he had a devilish face. Suddenly, the asylum ship originally used to receive refugees was hit by a cannonball and turned into a wreck in an instant. No one on the ship survived. Witnessing all this, Akiji was immediately furious and couldn't help but curse. Now that we have done it, we must eradicate it. When dealing with evil, we must leave no room for it. Sakazuki, whose entire face was hidden under the hood, spoke in a low voice, but what was revealed was a bone-chilling chill. Complete justice sometimes turns people into murderous weapons. I decided to let you leave this island. Nico Robin. Akiji stood on the shore and watched the fading figure. When Nico Robin left his sight, Akiji turned around and walked towards the warship without any nostalgia, but his back was stretched infinitely under the setting sun. See Circle Calendar September 1500, East Blue Shimatsuki Village. This year, Atlas turns 14 and is about to turn 15. 3 days have passed since Atlas came to Shimatsuki Village. During these 3 days, Koshiro first checked the foundation of Atlas, and then was surprised to find that the foundation of Atlas was better than he thought. It's much more solid, which makes Koshiro a little satisfied. After all, even if he doesn't want to offend Marine, he doesn't want to entrust his swordsmanship to a loser. Not only that, Koshiro also made some adjustments to Atlas's force exertion method and sword drawing posture. It can be said that Wanakuni is worthy of being a country rich in swordsmen, especially Koshiro himself, who pays special attention to the basic aspects of the swordsman. In Zoro, in the early days of practicing kendo, Koshiro did not teach him any specific sword moves, but only told him to polish the basics, so he had a lot of experience later. On the one hand, this is due to Zoro's own talent, but on the other hand, it is also inseparable from a solid foundation. Of course, there is no doubt about Zoro's talent in naming. He is like a man who can kill anyone in the 3,000 worlds. He is simply a showman. After correcting it, Atlas found that his sword moves were a bit sharper, and his force gradually became smoother. On the morning of the 4th day in Shimatsuki Village, Atlas was jogging around Shimatsuki Village to exercise. When he reached the beach, a newsbird passed by and immediately asked to buy a newspaper. In fact, Atlas I also have the habit of reading newspapers, but I have been busy studying kendo these past few days, so I haven't subscribed to it. The newsbird stared innocently at Atlas, its wings tightly protecting the newspaper in its arms. This made Atlas dumbfounded. Does he look like the kind of person who grabs newspapers to save 100 belly? But this 50 belly is quite expensive. It is worth the bounty of a chopper, and it is a chopper who has been practicing for 2 years. After paying the money, Atlas took the newspaper and found a place to sit under a taller tree, intending to read it slowly. Opening the newspaper, the 3 characters Buster Call came into view, which made Atlas look a little solemn. The so-called Buster Call is an inhumane attack that burns everything. Buster Call was established by the Marine headquarters authorized by the world government to carry out indiscriminate destructive attacks on the area where the signal is sent and to completely eliminate things and people in an area that pose a threat to the rule of the world government. It is equipped with a golden phone bug and a silver phone bug. The golden phone bug is used to notify the launch of Buster Call, and the silver phone bug is used to receive notifications. All are controlled by Marine Admiral and Marine Marshal. The golden phone bug can also be authorized to someone. Use. The combat power configuration of Buster Call is 10 battleships, 5 vice admirals, and the elite combat power of Marine. Battleships are definitely the sturdiest and most aggressive in the Marines. They are all built by the Royal Shipyard Seven Waters. In terms of quality, they are undoubtedly top-notch. It is basically no problem to deal with the small Sea Kings. There are about 1,000 ordinary Marine soldiers and thousands of elite Marines on each battleship. However, do not underestimate this force. Compared with ordinary pirate minions who only work on their own, they should be much more powerful when well-trained. If they can be ignored, then the pirate gang is even more negligible. In addition, there are 10 hidden people. If 5 vice admirals are equipped with 10 battleships, then there should be 10 subordinate adjutants under the vice admiral. It is impossible for every vice admiral to operate 2 ships. It is inevitable for each battleship to have a captain. It is estimated that the captain's level is either rear admiral or commodore. In Marine, the strength is between the vice admiral level and the colonel level. He is also an elite in combat. To sum up, The configuration of Buster Call is 5 vice admirals plus 10 rear admirals plus nearly 10,000 marine elites plus 10 top battleships. Buster Call. What a terrifying power this is. Atlas, who was searching for all the information about Buster Call in his heart, continued to look down. As he expected, it was the O'Hara incident. There were only a few Buster Calls in the original work. Judging from the time, CC Circle Calendar 1500 should be the O'Hara incident. Reading the newspaper and combining it with the memories in his mind gave Atlas a general understanding of the O'Hara incident. Probably, in order to pursue the truth of history, a group of scholars from O'Hara secretly collected historical texts and translated them in violation of the world government's prohibition. Finally, the world government discovered it and decided to launch a Buster Call to massacre O'Hara. This O'Hara incident is a stain that Akainu can never erase, because he actually suspected that there were scholars on the Asylum ship and ordered the bombardment of the Asylum ship. Atlas could not comment on this matter, but he absolutely could not accept it. As for the views of scholars like O'Hara, Atlas can only say that they are too naive. It is true that pursuing the truth of history is the natural mission of a historian, but it seems a bit too selfish to violate the world government's explicit prohibition. These scholars may have the consciousness of martyrdom, but the residents of the island are so innocent. These scholars did not anticipate the serious consequences of this matter at all, and even if they discovered the truth, they did not have the power to protect the truth. Therefore, this group of scholars is a group of respectable but sad people. After withdrawing his thoughts, Atlas prepared to return to the dojo to ask Koshiro about the realm of Zantetsu. Closing the newspaper, a reward notice slipped quietly, revealing a portrait of a dark-skinned little girl. Son of a devil. The bounty is 79 million Baileys. Chapter 16, 1 year, in Jantai C Circle Calendar, January 1502, East Blue Shimatsuki Village. Under a huge sakura flower tree, a young man wearing a black Taoist uniform sat cross-legged upright, with an unsheathed long knife placed on his slender legs. The young man's face, with his eyes closed, was natural and peaceful. The knife-like profile gave him a sharp look. The young man was Atlas, who practiced kendo in Shimatsuki Village. It has been more than a year since he arrived in Shimatsuki Village, and he is now 16 years old. Who knew his birthday was in January? Suddenly, Atlas's closed eyes suddenly opened, his sharp eyes narrowed slightly, and an invisible aura escaped. Atlas suddenly stood up and drew out the knife. The scabbard hit the tree trunk violently with a loud bang. The huge sakura flower tree swayed violently. A large number of sakura flowers rushed to fall, and Atlas under the tree, but he began to dance with the long knife in his hand. What was surprising was that waves of terrifying knife light fell on the scattered sakura flowers, but there were no traces of the knife cutting them. If Koshiro were here, he would definitely sigh with his palms in his hands. The realm of cutting iron. It's done. A year ago, Mr. Koshiro, I feel that my swordsmanship has reached a bottleneck, and I can't reach the next level no matter what. Atlas sat cross-legged on the futon in the living room and looked at Koshiro on the main seat. Ah, the next realm you mentioned should be the iron-cutting realm. Only by entering the iron-cutting realm can one truly be called a swordsman. Koshiro was still smiling and explained unhurriedly. Oh, then I would like to ask Mr. Koshiro, how can a swordsman cut through steel? I hope you can teach me. Atlas unconsciously straightened his already straight body. Come on, let me go outside and demonstrate it for you in person. With that said, Koshiro walked straight outside, and Atlas followed him when he saw this. The season at this time has also entered winter, and layers of white snow decorate the monotonous world, except for the changeable weather in the Grand Line. The weather and seasonal changes in the world are relatively normal. The two of them were wearing thin clothes. I still don't feel cold in my GI. I saw Koshiro pulling out a piece of white paper from nowhere like a magic trick, throwing the white paper into the air, and then took out the word Wado in his hand. A cold light flashed through, adding to the already cold winter. It was chilling, but the white paper was still intact. Instead, it slowly fell along its original trajectory, then covered the snow, and was then buried by the falling snow. Atlas was greatly shocked. He was not a kid who didn't understand anything. You must know that Hadao Yamoji is a big asset, which is often called the 21 sword. Even ordinary people who are not proficient in swordsmanship can get it. He can also easily cut gold and jade, let alone an ordinary piece of white paper. This shows Koshiro's terrifying control over power. Sir, there's a swordsman in this world who cannot cut anything, but that swordsman can cut steel or even harder things with the same sword. The so-called strongest swordsmanship is one who can protect what he wants to protect. A sword that has the power to cut off anything it wants to cut off and harms everything it touches is not a sword to me. Koshiro is explaining his own swordsmanship to Atlas, which is the belief of protection. In the world of One Piece, belief can be said to be a very important thing. Only by having your own belief can you reach the top of the world. Maybe, but once the belief is shattered, the strength will slowly decline, just like the former Marine Admiral Zephyr, who believed in the justice of no killing, but his family was retaliated by pirates and stabbed in the back by the world government. So his belief was shattered. Went to extremes, but the strength declined significantly. Atlas also has his own belief that is the strongest. He is not the strongest man in the world like Whitebeard. He wants to be a man who breaks the ceiling and becomes invincible, but he will not become a puppet who pursues power. He also has his own justice. If you are poor, you can be kind to yourself, and if you are successful, you can help the world. The Chinese culture in his previous life has deeply influenced him, and when he reaches the top, Mr. Koshiro, what does this have to do with Zantetsu? Atlas asked as he recovered his thoughts and looked Koshiro in the eye. Sorry, I accidentally went too far. Everything in the world breathes, and the so-called cutting of iron means cutting along the breath of steel. Koshiro explained patiently. And you should have awakened observation haki. It should be easy for you to understand the breath of all things. Without waiting for Atlas to answer, Koshiro said with a smile. Was Atlas lost in thought, feeling the breath of all things? It's a bit like an ultimate version of Giant Wince, a low-end version of listening to the sounds of all things. So, Giant Wince should really benefit this. After coming back to his senses, Atlas was about to raise his head and say something, but found that Koshiro had quietly left. In the next few months, in addition to tempering his body and practicing physical skills, Atlas would also try to use the color of knowledge to help him master the breath of all things, but there was still no progress. When he found Koshiro, he got him the answer is that the accumulation of swordsmanship is not enough. Also, it had only been more than 2 years since he learned swordsmanship, and he didn't just practice swordsmanship. Although his basic swordsmanship had been refined, it was still a bit superficial, so he calmed down and polished his skills carefully. Fencing finally, today, when Atlas just turned 16, he realized the breadth of all things and officially became a swordsman. Wow, Brother Kanos, you are so awesome. Suddenly, a childish voice came from behind a nearby tree. It was a little girl with black hair and black eyes, wearing braids. She was Koshiro's daughter, Kuina. In fact, Atlas had already discovered Kuina hiding behind the tree, but he didn't say anything out loud, not once or twice anyway. Now Kuina is more than 1 year old. I wonder if it is because the average physical fitness of One Piece is relatively high. Now Kuina can run and jump. Under the influence of the family atmosphere, Kuina has been fond of swords for a long time and often comes to peek at Atlas. She practiced swordsmanship, but Atlas didn't care. He just let Kuina play on the sidelines. With his knowledge and color, he could help Koshiro take care of the child, which was considered a small reward. Kuina, who is still young, naturally doesn't know anything about swordsmanship. She simply thought that Atlas's swordsmanship posture was particularly handsome, so she exclaimed, "Brother Kanos, it's time to go back to eat." Kuina touched her flat belly and said loudly to Atlas. Atlas also stood up after hearing this, patted the non-existent dust on his body, stepped forward, picked up the petite Kuina, put on his thick shoulders, and walked towards the dojo. In the distance, 2 figures, one large and one small, gradually disappeared into the sky, full of falling sakura. Chapter 17 Kill a pirate group. Along the way in the early morning, the drunken sunshine shines on the blue sea, and from time to time, there is a crisp gull call in the sky. East Blue, Shimotsuki Village. A simple sailboat is docked on the irregular curved coast. Sure, a young man with a height of 2.5 meters and a handsome face has a straight posture. The bulging muscles all over his body hold up his clothes fiercely, and his explosive figure gives people a sense of strength. The boy is Atlas, who is training in Shimotsuki Village. Opposite Atlas were the smiling Koshiro couple and Kuina, who still had tears in her eyes. Kuina's mother, Mrs. Heidi, now looked much rosier than when Atlas first met. Because Atlas seemed to have heard in his previous life that Mrs. Heidi passed away when Kuina was very young, so he specifically mentioned it to Koshiro. Atlas lied that he knew some medical skills, and told Koshiro that he felt that there might be something wrong with Mrs. Heidi's body. He hoped that Koshiro could find a doctor with superb medical skills to look at Mrs. Heidi. Of course, Atlas originally wanted to try the ability of the horse spell, but unfortunately, the ability of the horse spell can only affect Atlas himself. Whether there will be different changes in the future is probably determined to a certain extent by his strength. But I don't know what channel Koshiro found a doctor through, and he was hiding from Atlas mysteriously. Fortunately, Mrs. Heidi's complexion improved a lot after being treated by the mysterious doctor. At the same time, because of this incident, the Koshiro family and Atlas got along a lot better, at least not as harshly as they did at the beginning. So when they suddenly heard that Atlas was leaving, they felt a little bit sad, especially Kuina, who was crying. Thinking about it, no matter how strong Kuina's character is, she still has a girl's emotional side. A few days ago, after Atlas achieved the Iron Cutting Realm, he planned to say goodbye to Koshiro and his wife. He even hired someone to spend a lot of money to build a simple boat within a few days that could basically travel to Logtown. I specially chose the sunny and windy weather today to set sail. Just send it here. Goodbye, Mr. Koshiro and Kuina. I hope to see Kuina become a big girl next time I come over. Alice also said goodbye to the Koshiro family with a smile, and even teased Kuina a little. Suck well. I will definitely do it. Next time we meet, I will defeat Brother Kanos. Kuina sniffed and said firmly to Atlas, "Ha ha ha, then I'll be waiting for you." Atlas laughed a few times and jumped onto the boat, cut the rope with his knife, opened the canvas, and the ship sailed far away according to the current and wind direction. It has been 2 days since Atlas left Shimotsuki Village and sailed on the sea. During these 2 days, Atlas training consisted of swimming to exercise physical fitness, daily sword-wielding training, and meditation. He doesn't really want to eat devil fruit yet, and he hasn't encountered any suitable fruit abilities, so now he can swim in the sea to his heart's content. Moreover, swimming is a very physical exercise. He also wants to be able to cross the calm belt with his bare hands like Silver Rayleigh in the future. Just thinking about it makes people's adrenaline soar. This is the romance of a sea man. As for meditation, it was Koshiro who taught him. The meditation he used before was something he figured out at random, and the effect was far less effective than what Koshiro taught him. He has been meditating for more than a year. Observation Haki can already cover half of the island, and his attainments are quite profound. I don't know if his spirit is unusually strong or if it is due to the power of meditation. After all, sailing on the sea is too boring. After practicing, a red light flashed in Atlas's eyes, and Observation Haki was released unscrupulously. In an instant, Atlas felt that the world became much clearer. Suddenly, a pirate ship broke into Atlas's coverage area. What a coincidence. I'm bored right now, so let's practice with you. It could just be used as a meeting gift for Colonel Randall. After all, he was a little late for the agreed 1 year. Thinking of this, Atlas warmed up a little, stretched his muscles, and finally gave these pirates a serious ride. After a while, the pirate ship approached Atlas's small sailboat. On the Skull Pirate flag, a hammer is placed diagonally in the middle. The hull structure is also relatively average. It is probably a pirate group with no reputation. Otherwise, it would not be so miserable. But Atlas was a little unfair to them. Pirates are a group of guys who don't do anything. He advocates the supremacy of pleasure and spends money as soon as he grabs it. As for the ship, as long as it can sail, there are no excessive requirements. And this is the current situation of the vast majority of pirates. As the two slowly approached, the members of the Hammer Pirates also discovered Atlas, who was alone, and immediately thought of robbing him. "Hey, you kid over there, do you want to give you a ride?" "Ha ha." The captain of the Hammer Pirates stretched out his head comically and smiled at Atlas. "Okay, then please take me to the Marine base in Logtown." Atlas seemed not to notice the other party's full malice and jumped onto the pirate ship and said, Hey, stop it. Brat, do you know who I am?" Hauhei was also shocked by Atlas's move. He had been a pirate for so long, and he had never seen someone so unafraid of death. He is a pirate, the kind that burns, kills, and loots. Do you want to be so disrespectful? Thinking about it, Hauhei's face gradually became ferocious. Brush. Suddenly, a blood-red slash flew out from the standard long sword that Atlas had drawn, instantly cutting Gaguro, the captain of the Hammer Pirates, in half. The cuts were extremely smooth, and the remaining slashes were still powerful, cutting down several unlucky pirates to the ground, wondering whether they were alive or dead. "Nanny, what is that? Why did the knife kill the captain without touching him?" The rest of the pirates immediately became excited, and at the same time, they became more afraid of the unknown. Characters like swordsmen are still very rare in the Four Seas, let alone East Blue, the weakest sea. Alice didn't bother to explain and just raised the knife horizontally. There was no need to use any sword moves. He just cleaned up all the miscellaneous fish like chopping melons and vegetables, and then casually wiped the bloodline on the knife on a pirate lying on the deck. Then Atlas took over the ownerless ship as a matter of course, and also searched for supplies along the way. Run to the cab and take it for a test drive. Sure enough, big boats go faster than small boats. Now, it is estimated that it will only take 1 day to reach Logue Town. Sure enough, a person is not rich without windfall, and a horse is not fat without nightgrass. It smells so good. Chapter 18 Oolong. Woo 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 woo, a rapid siren sounded right above the Logtown Marine base. Rows of Marines lined up in an orderly manner in a tense atmosphere. Colonel Randall also appeared on time at the base campus to inquire about the situation. Report to the colonel. A pirate ship was spotted docked at the port. It's the Hammer Pirates with a reward of 30 million belly for all members. A sailor who looked like an intelligence officer loudly reported. Well, the Hammer Pirates, Randall remembers them. Captain Gohei has a bounty of 20 million belly, and he can be considered a big pirate in the East Blue. Note, since Luffy has not yet been born, Garp does not come to East Blue very frequently. Therefore, although East Blue is still the weakest sea, the overall bounty is not as low as it was more than 10 years later. Everyone is here. Line up and go to the port to stop the Hammer Pirates and prevent the pirates from landing. Protect the safety of the residents of the town. Randall yelled. A bounty of 20 million is enough for him to take seriously. After all, he is just a branch colonel, unlike Smoker in the future, who basically has strong dominance over pirates who don't know how to hockey by relying on the Logia fruit. A careless move might cause the boat to capsize in the gutter. Yo, how did Colonel Randall and the others know that I was coming back? And they started such a big fight. Really, it makes me almost feel embarrassed. Atlas' sight and color naturally captured a group of Marines coming from afar, especially the leader, Colonel Randall. He thought they were here to welcome his return, so he sat cross-legged on the bow of the ship with a smile and enjoyed the scene. A moment of highlight. When Randall arrived at the port, he found a young man with a resolute face and bulging muscles sitting on the bow of the Hammer Pirates. However, he did not see anyone else on the pirate ship. He thought there was an ambush, and he became increasingly worried. Be wary. But Randall always felt that this boy looked familiar, as if he had seen him before somewhere. Colonel Randall, what's wrong? You don't recognize me? Alice also felt that something was wrong at this time. When Randall saw him, instead of giving him a big hug, at least he didn't come over and give him a confused look and then look wary. And the sailors at the back were all murderous and looked like they were going to eat him. They didn't look like they were coming to greet him. Are you that brat from Alice? Colonel Randall carefully compared the man in front of him with the kid in his heart and said with some uncertainty, this is not to blame Randall. After all, Atlas is now considered an adolescent boy, and he has indeed changed a lot from before leaving Logtown. First of all, the height and body. He was relatively lean before, but now his smooth muscle lines, thick latissimus dorsi, and bulging deltoid muscles are completely different from before, and his appearance also looks much more mature. The whole person's temperament has a sense of sharpness. Colonel Randall doesn't remember me. It really breaks my heart. Atlas said he was sad, but there was a smile on his face. The surrounding Marines breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that they were not enemies. Some of the Marines who knew Atlas wanted to say hello, but they held back due to military discipline. What's going on with this pirate ship? Randall asked the question in his heart. Oh, I met this on the road. The boat was too slow, so I just killed them and earned some military honors for you as a meeting gift. Atlas replied casually. Then why don't you take down this pirate flag? Randall's forehead was beating, and he was a little excited. Atlas was stunned, looked in the direction of the pirate ship, then looked at the furious Randall, and immediately understood. Well, don't be so angry, I just forgot. After speaking, he drew his sword and slashed at the mast of the pirate ship. A blood-red slash flew away, cutting off the pirate flag directly and falling into the sea. Look, it's gone now. This really shocked Colonel Randall and a group of sailors. Colonel Randall was okay. After all, he was also someone who had been to the Grand Line. The swordsman had naturally seen it. He was just surprised by Atla. It's just C's growth rate. But the other Marines were completely conquered by this powerful force. Good boy, let's go to my office and have a good chat. All Marines, disband where you are, Randall said with a laugh, and kept pulling Atlas towards his colonel's office. Randall was sitting leisurely on the chair in the office, puffing away at a cigar in his mouth. Naturally, this cigar was not a high-end item, just an ordinary commodity. Although Randall is not very powerful, he is definitely worthy of the word justice behind him. Come, tell me in detail what happened while you were away. Randall looked at Atlas with satisfaction. It's nothing. I just got lost after chasing the Phylock pirates, and then happened to meet Vice Admiral Garp. Vice Admiral Garp should have told you everything after that. Atlas roughly reported what happened during this period to Colonel Randall. In fact, he was not sure whether he had told Colonel Randall because of Garp's unreliability. Then Randall, as an elder, asked some details about what happened when Atlas was wandering outside, and Atlas answered them one by one. After a long time, Atlas gently closed the door of the colonel's office, and he was going to visit Captain Wright. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that Atlas is now a branch captain, the same level as Wright. At Wright's home, Atlas looked at Captain Wright with a constipated look on his face, because his shoulder insignia clearly showed that Wright was already the major of Logtown Marine Base. This made Atlas, who originally wanted to show off, the words suddenly stuck in my throat. In fact, it is more than enough to be promoted to school-level officer with Atlas's strength and military merit. But school-level officers cannot be appointed by a mere branch colonel. They have to report to the headquarters, and then the headquarters will issue a letter of appointment, which is expected to take a while. After having a hearty chat at Wright's house and asking about Wright's situation, the visit basically came to an end. Oh, by the way, remember to go find Smoker when you have time. He should really want to see you right now. Finally, Captain Wright. Oh no, Major Wright said meaningfully to Atlas. Oh, there will be a chance. Although he was a little confused, Atlas still answered. Chapter 19 discussion. Early the next morning, Atlas started a day of training on the base campus. Not to mention, Atlas missed the time when he first joined Marine and worked hard on the campus. Yo, Atlas, it's true. You've been working out so hard since you came back, and you don't even know how to take a break. Colonel Randall, who was passing by, saw that Atlas was practicing as soon as he came back, and couldn't help but joked. I can't help it. I'm still too weak now. Atlas replied while waving the long knife in his hand, the determination in his eyes not diminishing by half. Well, you are such a desperate kid. It just so happens that my hands are itchy. Why don't you compete with me to test your strength? Colonel Randall twisted his thick neck and said to Atlas with a smile. Of course, you are not allowed to use flying slash. Then Randall seemed to have thought of something and quickly added. Atlas also felt a little itchy after hearing this. Although he felt that no one in the base could be his opponent now, he still wanted to compete with Randall the nominally strongest person in the base, and maybe he could still do it. Learn something. After all, given Randall's age, he must have much more combat experience than Atlas. Good, Atlas shouted in response, and then followed Randall to a wide area on the school field. The soldiers who were watching the excitement became excited. They were originally curious about who was stronger, Atlas or Colonel Randall. After all, Atlas was a famous monster in the base. Moreover, the previous scene at the port also left a deep impression on them, and then they ran around shouting and calling friends. After a while, the school grounds were crowded with dark Marine soldiers. Hey, Colonel Randall, you have to do your best later, and don't lose too quickly. Atlas glanced at the surrounding situation, then smiled at Randall. You're so long-winded. Stop talking nonsense, you brat. Randall also laughed and cursed without giving in. Then the two drew their knives forward, and where the blades collided, a burst of sparks flashed. Kid, your knife is not as sharp as your big words. Randall stared at Atlas, who was confronting him. His face was a little red from exerting too much force, and the veins on his neck were bulging. It was obvious that he was struggling a bit with the strength of Atlas. But he did not admit defeat at all. Oh, really? Then old man Randall, try my trick again. Atlas was not to be outdone and kept spewing trash talk. Itoriu Iris. Atlas took a step back, his arms bulging, his biceps and triceps working together, and he hit Randall with a powerful and heavy horizontal slash. Of course, Atlas held him back a little. His strength. Otherwise, he would directly chop Colonel Randall to the point of vomiting blood. What a bad impact it would have. Randall was obviously not a vegetarian. He held the knife upright at his side and blocked the knife easily. Ah, kid, have you not had enough to eat? Come on, keep going. Randall continued to speak harshly to cover up his inner uneasiness. Mud, what did this kid grow up on? Why is he so powerful? Atlas brushed off Randall's trembling right hand without leaving a trace, and decided to suppress his strength again to save some face for old man Randall. The surrounding Marine soldiers naturally didn't know what was going on. They thought the two were evenly matched and kept cheering on the sidelines. Come again, kid, Randall roared angrily, seeming to give himself a buff bonus. Boom! It was another unpretentious collision, but Atlas's weapon seemed to have some cracks, which was normal. Atlas had always used a Marine standard long knife, which was not a famous sword. It was natural to follow him in the battle. It should have been retired long ago, but it has been able to persist until now and is considered a high-quality standard knife. Ha ha, you brat. Your sword looks like it's about to give out. Colonel Randall obviously also noticed the cracks caused by Atlas's knife. Even with his extraordinary eyesight, a veteran like him could sense something was wrong as soon as he heard the sound of the collision. Don't worry, Colonel Randall. It will be enough to support you until I defeat you. One sword style bird thorn. A straight thrust came towards Randall, majestic and overwhelming. Randall blocked the sword, and a white spot suddenly appeared on his beloved saber. This made Randall very distressed. Although this saber was not a famous sword, it had been with him in battles for most of his life. It was better than Marine. The standard knife is much better. You brat, I'm going to get serious. Randall was also heartbroken at the moment, holding knives in both hands so that he could receive the force of Atlas's slash. Shave. Randall suddenly disappeared in front of Atlas, leaving only a series of afterimages. In the Marine 6 styles, due to limited qualifications, Randall has only learned 2 of the styles. He is not yet a grandmaster, just a beginner. Now, he can only bully Atlas, who has not yet learned the 6 styles. However, Atlas' current physical fitness has become inhumane and has fully reached the standard of practicing 6 styles. His explosive speed alone is already beyond the reach of ordinary people. But Marine 6 styles is a legacy of physical skills that transcends the limits of the human body. Therefore, Atlas is currently not as fast as Colonel Randall, but with Randall's physical strength, it is estimated that it will not take more than a few shaves. You must know that shaving puts a huge load on the user's leg muscles. Atlas could completely delay Randall until he couldn't support himself, and then easily take down the opponent. But, see and hear, locking. Atlas, who had activated his sense of sight, easily spotted Colonel Randall, who was about to go around behind him. Then he curled his lips and reached back to take it out. Don't retreat, but advance. Idao Luyu Luo. This is a newly developed move by Atlas. It is essentially a top-down slash, but due to the huge power and kinetic energy, it will produce 3 ghosts and hit the enemy like a gust of wind. Past. At this time, Randall was honored to be the first experimenter recruited by Atlas, but he did not feel lucky at all. The power of Yulo alone made him feel depressed. However, just when Randall was about to lose, a sudden change occurred, and Atlas's long knife suddenly turned into iron pieces all over the sky and fell down. It was probably that the long knife that had already cracked couldn't withstand the rain and fell into pieces, so it suddenly broke. This relieved Lon. Dell's defeat was critical. Chapter 20. How can a sword be such an inconvenient thing? Ha, kid, you will definitely lose this time. Randall was stunned for a moment, then laughed proudly. Alice also smiled and clenched his fists. A thick layer of fist cocoon covered his fist peaks like armor, which was intimidating. How can a sword be such an inconvenient thing? My physical skills are also very strong. Mr. Colonel, Atlas smiled meaningfully. Although he has been focusing on practicing swordsmanship over the years, it gave people the impression that Atlas was a swordsman. Once there was no sword in his hand, his combat effectiveness would be greatly reduced. This kind of thinking did not wrong. This is true for any swordsman. But Atlas is different. He doesn't have that kind of sincerity towards the way of the sword. For him, swordsmanship is just a powerful means for him, and the same is true for physical skills. Therefore, in his daily training, his physical skills have never fallen behind. There are no complicated training methods. He just punches day by day, first in the air, and then starts punching hard objects. This was also learned from Garp's memory. In order to blow up the proud head all of the 8 treasure navies Garp flattened 8 mountains with his fist to practice. Atlas naturally cannot reach this level of terror, but it can still hit a dozen small mounds. Randall didn't do anything fancy, he just slashed at him. Atlas was naturally not stupid enough to use his bare fist to hit the blade head-on. Instead, he turned his body slightly to one side and hit the blade with his fist. The powerful force instantly made Colonel Randall almost unable to hold his hand of a knife. Before Randall could react, Atlas lunged forward again, pursuing the victory. An unpretentious touch landed on Randall's body. Randall only felt a strong force coming from his body.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.